one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. There being 131 members present, the House is now in session. Clerk will read a journal from the previous day.
Annapolis, Maryland, March the 19th, 2021.
Recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Moves much be considered the reading of the journal from the previous day.
So ordered, petitions, memorials, and other papers. Yeas and nays, number 6. The House bills passed in the Senate. The clerk will read the bills.
House Bill 72, House Bill 295, House Bill 630, House Bill 738, House Bill 777, House Bill 790, House Bill 800 by order Sylvia Secret, Chief Clerk.
Senate Bill 202. Clerk will read the message.
Senate Bill 202, Correctional Services, Parole, Life Imprisonment. Ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate refuses to concur in the House amendments and respectfully requests that the House recede from its position. Should the House prefer a conference committee to confer the disagreeing votes of the two houses, the Senate appoints Senator Carter chair, Senator Waldstreicher, and Senator Huff. Senate Bureau is returned herewith.
Message to the Senate.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the House of Delegates does not recede in the House amendments to the Senate bill and agrees to a conference committee to confer the disagreeing votes of the two houses. The Senate has appointed Senator Carter chair, Senator Waldstreicher, and Senator Huff. The House appoints Delegate Clippinger chair, Delegate Williams, and Delegate Malone. Said bill is returned herewith.
Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk will take the call. There being 135 members present, the House is still in session. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 100. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 310, Maryland Arts Capital Grant Program.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 121 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 310, having received the Constitution majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading, Senate Bills number 30. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 140, Vehicle Laws, Commercial Motor Carrier Safety Inspection Performance and Insurance Information, James Cohen's Law.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 140, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 200, Natural Resources Organized Killing Contest Restriction.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 115 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 200, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 350, Natural Resources, Aquaculture, Leases.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 350, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 442, Aquaculture Coordinating Council, application of title wetlands permit, requirements to aquaculture operations study.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 442, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading, Senate Bills number 33. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 247, State Board of Podiatric Medical Examiners, sunset extension.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 247, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 455, Employment Discrimination, time for filing complaints.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 455, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 517, State Board of Physical Therapy Examiners, temporary license to practice physical therapy and limited physical therapy.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 138 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 517, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 537, Pharmacist, required notification and authorized substitution, lower cost drug or device product.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 537, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 542, State Healthcare Facilities, Employees, Alternative Work Weeks.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 138 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 542, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 564, consolidation of the Procurement Improvement Council and the Council for the Procurement of Health, Educational, and Social.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 138 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 564, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 658, Maryland Department of Emergency Management Establishment and Transfer of Maryland 911 Board.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 658, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Report of the Committee on Economic Matters, report number 42. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 489, Anne Arundel County Alcoholic Beverages Class MT License. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 944, Anne Arundel County Alcoholic Beverages Licenses. Annual fees. Favorable.
Question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Yes. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered to pass for third reading.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to special order this bill until the appropriate time on Wednesday.
The bill's gone. Should have got a little earlier. Report of the Committee on Economic Matters, report number 43. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 65, Electricity Renewable Energy Portfolio Standard Qualifying Biomass. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 brings in and adjusts the Tier 1 total and solar percentage schedules and the corresponding ACP schedule, brings in Tier 2 provisions, and applies the Tier 2 changes to the start of 2021. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Recognizing the gentleman from Western Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If the floor leader would briefly rise. Is this the same bill, my friend, that did you have the cross file of this bill, or is that different? The bill that would, in its original iteration, it eliminated what we call the black liquor credits, or is this different?
Yes and no.
Okay.
It's yes, it was the same bill that I had. I can't recall the House bill number.
Sure.
But it was the same bill. But there was a modification made to it that's different from the House bill. It added in hydro to Tier 2.
Okay. And what is the black liquor credits? So we're going to completely eliminate those. I used to care an awful lot about that, obviously, because the only black liquor producing facility in the state was in my county, my colleague's district, but in my county.
Yes, sir.
And I'll be honest with you, I care about it a little bit less today than what I used to, because those jobs are no longer there, and I don't think they're going to be there, at least in a paper or a pulp making facility. But I do have a little bit of consideration. What is the percentage of our RPS credits that we use for black liquor? I mean, I remember reading about this. There's a facility, I think, in Louisa County or maybe Chillicothe in Virginia that takes up a huge amount of these credits with black liquor.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe it's 22%.
Okay.
23.
Okay, and I'm not going to hold you to it. We're not playing quiz shows, so if you get it wrong by a few percentage, I understand that. So what will, over time, does the committee think under this bill, what will come in and replace those credits? Because those RECs that are being purchased by our utility providers from these out-of-state entities for black liquor, how quickly and how can they be replaced so that the providers can still provide the same number of RECs without buying them from black liquor facilities?
And just in terms of how they can be replaced, I think they can be replaced in any number of ways. I can't tell you for certain which route they'll go, but number one, well, not number one, but for instance, in this bill, we've added hydro back to tier 2. So hopefully that will help some. As we continue to develop solar and wind, we're hoping that'll pick up some as well. So, I mean, there could be any number of ways to replace it. Ultimately, you know, because we do want to avoid the alternative compliance payments. So the hope is that the utilities, that they will find replacements for it. But a key part of the discussion we had on the floor on the House bill was this was the difference between renewable energy and clean energy. And
Right.
if we're trying to get to that clean energy goal, maintaining the black liquor credits just isn't the way to go. And
Sure.
so, you know.
And I can see some of that. Hydropower, I think, is an interesting thing. Is there any hydropower, to your knowledge, that's currently being generated in Maryland that's providing some Maryland jobs or some Maryland project
I think
that would
the only
qualify for
one
the
I'm
REC?
aware of is Conowingo Dam.
Okay. And I heard you mention, I think, and I might have missed it, when you talked about the amendments on tonight's bill, I thought you said something about solar, or it changed some calculation, the amendments for solar. Does the bill as currently construed have anything to do with the solar percentage within the REC formula?
Yes.
What does that go to? I mean, what are we trying to set as our target for solar RECs?
Let me have just a second. I know we adjusted it, or the bill adjusted downward. So because of the COVID, it was adjusted downward, but in return, the alternative compliance payments, they were increased slightly if the downward targets are missed.
If you didn't have the solar to purchase because projects didn't go online because of COVID delays, then you could purchase the alternative payments would adjust to fill that in.
Yes, but remember now, we lowered the solar percentages for a brief period of time. So yes, the alternative compliance payments would increase if those lower targets aren't met.
Okay. And then at a point in time, the solar percentage comes back online and grows over a period of time in terms of the REC target. I'm just wondering about that because we have an issue with solar. I know in my county they're trying to do solar. I know in Garrett County they're trying to develop a very large solar farm. But I know from my very good friend, the chair of the Environmental Matters Committee, that in Montgomery County there's some issues because they've eliminated large portions of land that they could actually put these projects on. County government has said, no, either you can't put them on or we're going to make it so difficult that it's not going to be economically feasible to put them on. What ultimately does the solar target rise to under this bill for the RECs when we're done with the step-down period because of COVID?
I don't think it mentions it.
Okay, so it would just stay with what it was under prior statute, and I can look that up. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's a very interesting issue, and I'm just trying to wonder how to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
The gentleman from Cecil in the annex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just had a quick question for the floor leader on the bill.
Floor leader.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Floor Leader. My senator is dealing with a similar bill to this, and I just want to find out where LFGs fall with this bill.
Liquefied natural gas?
Landfill gas, specifically methane.
I'm sorry, let me get that question. I'm not quite sure if I'm following you. You want to know how that falls with this bill?
Yes, so is landfill gas captured within this Tier 1, and if not, is it Tier 2?
If I'm understanding you correctly, this bill was, with the amendments, it specifically just talked about black liquor only.
Right, so I read the text of the bill, and it makes some references to, biodegrading mass, what's in, what's out. And my question is, and this is possibly for a purpose of an amendment, landfill gas is about 50% methane, 50% CO2, and as all the members of this body know, that methane gas is 28 to 36 times stronger than CO2 when it comes to capturing heat in the atmosphere. And I'm just wondering, if you go past large-scale landfills, you'll see those large torches burning at all hours, or you'll see that gas being captured and put into a generation system to where it can generate electricity. But the whole concept here is methane is extremely flammable, and it's best to capture it as it comes out. I think landfills are the third largest producer of said gas by humans out there. So I'm just wondering why it was overlooked and why it's not included this or tier 2.
It wasn't overlooked. I mean, that's what was presented to the committee. It was just dealing with black liquor.
Okay, is it? I believe this is on second reader Senate bill. Is it possible to hold this bill for purpose of amendment to get my senator's bill?
Well, because it's second reader Senate bill, I think we could let it go. And if you had an amendment, we could offer it on third reader.
Okay, yep. I appreciate that indulgence, and thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, sir.
Madam Speaker,
Young lady from Carroll.
question. Thank you. Question about what percentage right now do we get from RPS, from REC credits? What percentage of our renewable energy portfolio are we getting?
Hold on. I'm sorry. Can you
what is our
repeat that?
current value of the percentage of RPS that we have met?
That we have met?
Mm-hmm. What's the requirement, and then what have we met? What's our goal, and where are we?
No, that's not what she's talking.
Have we met our goal? And
the goal for biomass or
no, for everything.
Just for everything.
For everything. What percentage are we? Is our goal currently, and are we there?
Give me just a second. Let me see if we can get the overall goal.
I'm just trying to get update where we are with this. We started this many years ago when I served on your committee. I remember putting the first RPS in place.
Oh yeah, that was like 2.5%. We're well past that now. No, that's all right. We can hold it, delegate.
Mr. Chair, would you yield?
Yes, ma'am.
The RPS is 30.8% from Tier 1 in 2021, and I believe that we are either meeting it or very close with ACP sometimes filling in.
And do you know what percentage we get is purchased in the state of Maryland?
Overall,
of that goal, how much do we actually produce in the state of Maryland versus what we have to buy from
it's
out of
very
state?
small. I don't have the precise figure, but relative to that goal, it's a small number. We get a lot of out-of-state recs.
Right. I mean, I've gotten my notes that we get about 18% of that that we actually buy in Maryland. And of that, do you know what portion biomass constitutes?
The earlier number that we had for black liquor was 23%.
That's what I got. Okay. So I guess my question, since we're only getting 18% from in Maryland, how are we going to get our goal up, and what's it going to do to rates if we have to buy more recs from out of state?
Again, as I told the gentleman sitting behind you from Western Maryland, we're hoping that any number of things that can come up, whether it's increasing solar, wind, hydro, whatever the case may be, the purchasing of that, it falls primarily on the utilities when they are procuring the power. So that's not something that we necessarily, right here in the General Assembly can do or mandate. We'll get it from here or we'll get it from there. That's up to the utilities as they procure power for us. In terms of rates, there are alternative compliance payments for if we do not meet those targets. I think that's something that if it becomes a problem, though, we can easily adjust.
But has the committee ever tried to find out why we're only getting 18% from
No.
in the state of Maryland? And what
No.
are other states doing to bring their percentage up?
We have not.
I think it's something we should look into, because this number's been really low for many, many, many years, and we should be if we're going to push renewable energy, it'd be nice to be able to buy it from in-state versus getting everything from out of state. But
I don't think, well, so, I mean, I don't think that's unique to Maryland, though. I mean, that's why the whole renewable energy credits or RECs, that's a popular thing. When, for example, when a lot of that can come from the Midwest where it's windier, in places where you know, the sun's more available year round. Again, those are areas, solar, they're more effective they're more effective from different places. So we're still trying to get through this. We're still trying to develop our overall industry, a whole clean energy industry, which is why we have given carve-outs for solar and wind, and we're trying to develop our green energy, but we're not there yet.
well, I think our neighbors of Virginia and North Carolina have done a better job, and it might be nice to figure out what they're
They've
doing
also
different.
been more aggressive than us too. If we're being honest about that, they've been far more aggressive, really in the Mid-Atlantic than we have in Maryland. We're still trying to catch up.
Thank you. The one thing I would like to know, though, is, and you don't have the answer now, is what is the impact on rates on the REC credits that we purchase? I think it'd be nice to be transparent about that. But thank you.
Recognizing the gentleman from Garrett.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much. Mr. Floor Leader, would you mind taking a couple more questions?
I don't think I have a choice.
Committee Chair?
My friend from Allegheny County, from Western Maryland, asked several questions, and I just want to get some further clarification on some of your answers on those questions. Number one, I can't remember from, I think it was your bill that dealt with black liquor. Black liquor was a tier 1. Did your bill or this bill, does it take away all REC credits from black liquor, or does it just reduce it from tier 1 to tier 2?
It eliminates it.
Completely eliminates it.
Completely eliminates it.
Okay, well, it can't hardly hurt us here in Maryland because the mill that was doing that is now gone. But so that's not.
That's why.
That's
yes,
not,
sir.
As big a concern as it used to be. But the other thing was, I think you at one point you made a statement that this also deals with hydro. Is that correct? But then you later said this bill only deals with black liquor and not hydro.
The bill that I did was only was only black liquor. On this bill is hydro. Hydro's been added to it as a tier 2 source, not tier 1.
So it reduces hydro from tier 1 to tier 2.
No, hydro. All right, it's a little complicated.
Yeah.
Hydro it expired in 2019, but we had a provision on it because it was still being looked at by the governor overall. So we extended it through 2020, if I have my dates correct, 2020, while we were awaiting that report. And then, of course, when things went awry, at the General Assembly, we never got back to it. So it lapsed. Now, this bill puts it back in, but it puts it back in as tier 2 without a cease date, without an end date.
So then am I correct in assuming that it was at one point a tier 1, then that expired, and now it's coming back in as a tier 2, or was it a tier 2 coming back as a tier 2?
Correct, the latter.
It was a tier 2 coming back as a tier 2.
Correct.
And I do want to, I'm a little surprised, Mr. Chairman, that there is another hydroelectric facility in the state of Maryland called Deep Creek Lake Hydroelectric Power Facility. So that's why I'm asking those questions. So thank you for that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right.
Is there any further debate? If not, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 66, Department of Housing and Community Development, Office of Digital Inclusion, established Digital Connectivity Act of 2021. Favor of amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 conforms the bill to House Bill 97 by restoring the Rural Broadband Coordination Board. renaming the entity as the Office of Statewide Broadband, making conforming changes. Please move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Gentleman from St. Mary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Floor Leader, ask a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
I'm looking at the fiscal note. Does this eliminate the Rural Area Broadband Council, or does it combine them?
It actually combines it under one entity, so that way, as I said earlier in the House bill, they just didn't have the manpower to be as successful as they could be. So this allows them, by bringing it in under this Office of Digital Inclusion, which is now Statewide Office of Broadband, or Office of Statewide Broadband. Now it gives them a little more power because they have more of a staff, but it keeps their funding separate.
It keeps the funding separate. I'm looking at the fiscal notes over here. It expands to 15 million more than what's currently.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
It expands to 15 million more than what's currently.
That's correct.
How many people does it add to the board total? Like, what are they doing with the 15 million?
This is money to be dispersed.
Okay. So it's like a grant funding?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Is there any further debate? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 824, Economic Development, Broadband Providers, Joint Trenching and Fee, Building Out Broadband Act of 2021. Favorite amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It moves so much to be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 conforms the bill to the text of House Bill 1328 as passed by the House. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 933, Financial Regulation, Access to Banking and Financial Services, reporting favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Report of the Committee on Ways and Means, report number 32. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 401, Public Schools, Pregnant and Parenting Students, Policies and Reports. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Ways and Means.
Hold on one second. Madam Speaker, just a moment. I just need to pull something up because I accidentally got out of order at my place.
Madam Speaker, I can do the amendments while she's looking for the notes because she'll be defending the
Yes,
the
I'm
other
ready to do that.
amendments.
Okay. Who is doing this now?
The committee chair will while I pull this up.
All right, she's still finding the
Committee
other
chair.
information. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you for your indulgence. Move so much consider the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 alters the definition of pregnant or parenting student, alters the requirements of the model policy related to lactation spaces, requires that schools designate a staff member to connect pregnant and parenting students to resources to find transportation and childcare. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title?
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the gentlelady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could the floor leader rise for a quick explanation of what those amendments do?
Absolutely, Delegate.
What's the new definition of pregnant and parenting student?
It is a person that is already decided that they are going to be a parent. So just to make it clear, we wanted to make sure people understood that This bill is about young people who have intended to bring their child into the world, are preparing to do so, and otherwise are already parenting.
Okay, I understand. So the goal was to avoid the conundrum of potentially somebody coercing somebody into having an abortion when they'd already committed to becoming a parent.
The bill was never contemplated to do that, actually. It was always about making sure that people that were either pregnant or parenting were able to get information about one. Just childcare, for example, to get information about lactation. It was really always about making sure that there was model, guidance from the state, and ultimately model guidance from all of our school districts explaining to young people how to go about doing that.
That's what I thought the bill did when I read it, so I'm very pleased to know that we've put some extra guardrails on it so that it still does what it already did. Thank you.
Without a doubt.
Is there any further debate? Hearing none, the bill is ordered.
Madam Speaker.
The gentleman from Frederick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Real quick question for the floor leader.
Absolutely, sir.
Thank you. I think I heard you say that the third change is something about transportation. Could you explain?
Absolutely. One of the things that people have difficulty doing when they're going to and from school, as well as perhaps dropping off a child at childcare, is arranging for the transportation. So we want to make sure that those parenting or pregnant young folks are aware of all the opportunities that are available to them. As you can understand, in many instances, where someone's living at the time, their legal residence, it might not be a supportive environment. Maybe their family isn't actually supportive of their endeavor to bring a child into the world. So you want to make sure there's flexibility that wherever address they're at the moment as they're trying to establish their family dynamics, or anywhere that they need to drop the child off, that they're getting information about those transportation opportunities available to them.
So what does the amendment actually say that is required in terms of the transportation?
It just says that they need to be provided with the information necessary so that they can make an informed decision related to the transportation of their child to and from school, as they are also getting to and from school.
Okay, thank you. I might have some questions on the Senate bill on the same
Not
issue.
a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate.
Is there any further debate? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 716, Special Education, Individualized Education Programs, Educational Evaluations. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much to be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The amendment requires that if the state is in a state of emergency, 90 days must pass from the date a school system receives a request for an evaluation rather than 60 days before an independent evaluation is provided at public expense. This amendment puts the House bill in the same posture as the Senate cross-file. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title, or any debate? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 771, Public Schools Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Surveys, Revisions. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much to be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 requires that MSDE coordinate with the Maryland Department of Health in administering the CDC surveys. Requires that 5 survey questions from a survey on adverse child experiences be asked rather than all of the questions. Returns the current practice of allowing the omission of a third of the questions if MSDE deems them inappropriate. Removes the requirement that data be published on the county board websites and requires that collected data be reported to the governor and the General Assembly. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Gentleman from Western Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mr. Floor Leader, what exactly does this bill do?
This bill adds to a survey that is conducted in Maryland every 2 years in middle school and high school. That survey is generally about health, smoking, various other things. This is going to add 5 questions about adverse childhood experiences to that survey.
You had mentioned in some of the I guess they were technical.
I'm sorry, having a little trouble hearing.
Yes, sir. You had mentioned that there were some of the questions that were removed. What subjects, or what was the spear, tip of the spear for why removing those questions, please?
Yeah, let me clarify. The questionnaire has always been of a certain length. CDC provides the questionnaire for free if you keep it at a certain length. The original content of the bill was to increase it to its full length, which would have cost the state a fair amount of money. So we shortened it back to its normal length. MSDE is then permitted to eliminate a certain number of questions for that savings, and they pick them out as they see appropriate. The bill will now have them working with the Department of Health on that.
So with local control, the boards of education kind of decide if a charter school is allowed in the county or not in the county. Does this apply to those children as well for counties that actually have charter?
Well, the way the survey is run, the survey is done as a sample, okay? So it can be at various schools. Some schools are chosen for it every year. It's not a complete census. I'm not sure if I understood your question, but I think
Will
so.
the subcommittee chair yield?
Absolutely.
Committee chair?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to point out to the good gentleman, it's 7:30. The Senate version of this bill is on the governor's desk. We're trying to get the House bill moved over as well. But either way, this will likely become law. So I'm just suggesting that maybe we've already had the debate, that we don't need to rehash it with the bill already on the governor's desk.
So, Madam Speaker, may I'm asking a question. I didn't know this was time sensitive and I needed to sit down, but obviously that's the will of the committee.
The gentleman wants to ask his question. Ask your question.
No, thank you. I'll yield the balance of the time.
Okay. Is there any further debate? If not, the bill is printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 820, County Boards of Education, Computer Science Courses, Reporting Requirements. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 makes the reporting requirements on student data and instructors apply to all specialty courses, not just computer science. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Ways and Means, report number 35. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 1259, Horse Racing, Fair Hill Natural Resources Management Area. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 clarifies the amount that is deducted from the racing handle and distributed to the Fair Hill Improvement Fund and strikes provisions mandating appropriations to the fund. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 1376, Primary and Secondary Education, Virtual Education Requirements. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 requires that the Professional Standards and Teacher Education Board design a course to train teachers in virtual education. Amendment number 3 amends the Flip the Classroom pilot program. Amendment number 4 repeals the requirement that all county boards of education must adopt the Universal Learning Management System. Amendment number 5 repeals statutory provisions related to online courses and online services. And amendment number 6 prohibits the establishment of virtual schools until July 1, 2023. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Madam Speaker.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Question now is the adoption of the Fable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Fable report is adopted. The gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would the floor leader rise for a question?
I think he already has written.
I can't see. Oh, okay. So with the amendments, can you tell us what is the fiscal note now and what does it do and why do we need this bill?
Delegate, can you repeat your question again? Sorry.
With the amendments, the 4 or 5 amendments, you went a little bit too fast, but what is the new fiscal note? Has it changed from the original print? Second question is, why do we need this bill? And just explain what the bill does now and with the new amendments.
Yeah, there's a significant reduction in the fiscal note because of the amendments, because we got rid of the Universal Learning Management System requirement in the bill, so it's significantly reduced. Additionally, we decided this bill is needed because of this pandemic that we just went through and how it's impacting students every day. We required there to be more additional guidelines set for temporary virtual education. We also defined what temporary education means. We also defined what virtual education means and virtual courses means in this bill, which wasn't defined before. We also highlighted some Flip the Classroom, 2 different pilot programs. One was a Flip the Classroom program, and one was another one for special education, for specialty programs too.
So I understand that this is an important bill because of what happened, the pandemic, but moving forward, when everything goes back to normal, why do we need virtual learning? Because a lot of people, a lot of kids are not benefiting from virtual learning. So is this like a gateway to virtual learning moving forward?
Yeah, that's a great question, Delegate. Some students are going to need to continue to virtual learning because of pre-existing conditions of students. This doesn't change that at all. Right now, in current law, the state of Maryland, MSDE, can create a virtual school without you knowing for your school jurisdiction. This actually limits that and places a moratorium on it, too.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the minority whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Floor Leader, if you can answer a few more questions. As you may recall, I also had a bill on this topic, so I'm very interested in what this does. What can you tell us about the pilot programs?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the question. Thanks for the question, Delegate. The Flip the Classroom pilot program is a program that allows teachers to record their lectures ahead of time, and then the students will then watch the classes at home and then use the in-person time to actually be able to talk about the course and talk about those things. The other pilot program that we're offering is one that we thought was an interesting one. So right now there are specialty courses that are offered throughout the counties, and so some students can't take them because they're not offered at that high school. What this bill would do is allow there to be a countywide virtual education course, and we make sure that we're funding that too. So it's another pilot program. The first one lasts 3 years, the second one lasts 2 years.
But it sounds like there was, and while I agree with my good friend from Anne Arundel County, virtual learning's been I think the Maryland State Teachers Association said in their testimony that it's been an abysmal failure. But that being said, I think there are some kids that have really thrived in virtual learning. And so what this is going to do is not provide a full-time virtual learning for anybody. Is that correct?
No, what we're doing is putting a moratorium on full virtual schools. Right now, under the current law, you can create a virtual school throughout the state, and MSDE can do that. And so what we're doing is stopping that now and allowing the state to come up with regulations around it.
Why would you stop that? I mean, we have 34 other states that have full-time virtual online public school options for kids. Why did you decide that wasn't something that Maryland students should be able to get?
Well, we've learned from other states that are doing it that they aren't quite doing it well, Delegate. As you can see, during this pandemic, students are failing at a high rate, and there's a learning loss that's high than when you have an in-person learning. We're not limiting the ability for school systems to create virtual education courses. That can still happen. We're not limiting that, but right now we feel like we have to stop this, study it, figure out what the best practices are, and then move forward after that once we receive the study from MSDE.
Well, actually, many of those states have very successful public, virtual, full-time online school programs. So I would disagree with your previous comment on that. So you've disallowed it. Maryland students will not get a public, full-time online opportunity anytime in the, what did you say, till 2023 at least?
They can, the way we're doing it is we're placing a moratorium, Delegate. We want to slow the process down right now. We know there's so many things that need to be ironed out and with virtual educate or virtual schools. Virtual schools, you know, it's for some reason right now we don't have a full handle of it, and we want to make sure we get a full handle of it, Delegate. So we think that 2 years is enough time for us to get a full handle of it while we're still going through this deadly pandemic that's happening right now. And students will still be offered in person as well as virtual education courses right now.
But again, a full-time virtual online school is not what you're proposing. So I just will say I'm disappointed that you didn't even entertain that. I hope it's part of your study group because it is working in 34 other states. And some students, especially home and hospital care, you know, other students that have really thrived under this. Again, most have not. But there are students, we had testimony on the bill I had, families that said, this is great, let's keep doing it. So I hope that you'll put that in your study and look at how other states have successfully done this.
Thank you, Delegate. Madam Speaker, I have an amendment at the desk.
Go ahead, proceed.
Amendment number 285469/1.
Amendment number 1.
This amendment clarifies that students enrolled in exclusively virtual education will receive the same supports as students enrolled in a temporary virtual school. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing Gentlelady from Carroll.
Thank you. Thank you for this conversation. This is a pretty complex, comprehensive piece of legislation. And it modifies the existing law, which gives a lot of flexibility and authority to the local jurisdiction. So what is the intention with regard to local control? With some school districts have done very, very well. Some have done not as well. So how will this, what's the vision for the committee of virtual education with regard to the local jurisdictions and their authority?
So what we did was right now in the current law, Delegate, thank you for the question, Delegate. Right now in the current law, MSDE can create a virtual school for your jurisdiction or any jurisdiction in the state. We have promulgated regulations to make sure that the local school system can actually has the approval of virtual schools if they wanted to create one after the 2-year moratorium. We also allow for there to be virtual education courses that virtual education courses can be developed by the local school system and by MSDE. Education courses, not schools.
And I'm not just talking about courses, I'm also talking about platforms, because many of our school districts have different platforms, and they're pretty much laboratories of innovation in our own school districts as we move along. So would this force all jurisdictions to do one size fits all?
No, it doesn't, Delegate.
So you're promising us that we're going to have still significant authority and flexibility for our school districts?
Yes, you're still going to have to follow certain supports within. You're still going to have to follow certain supports within the certain guidelines within the system currently, but the local school system still will be able to have their own management system. We're incentivizing them to be able to do it because MSDE will be able to provide the supports for them as they're coming up with as they're developing their own platform.
And you have a lot more faith in that MSD than I do. They've been sort of void during the last year in giving guidance to our local school districts, in my opinion. So I'm not sure how they're going to know better than the 24 jurisdictions that are right there with students in front of them. We'll see how it goes, but I'm very concerned about the local jurisdictions that have really stepped up to the plate during this year to actually make things happen, and we've had very little guidance at all from the State Board of Education, in my opinion.
Delegate, if I can make it clear, we agree with you about MSDE. There's no difference there. We are separate. I think you might be reading the bill as it was introduced. We amended it so that localities can have their own management system.
All right, this is something we all should be following carefully because it's uncharted territory, and it's going to be part of the way of our future. It just depends on what it's going to look like. But thank you for answering my questions.
You're welcome.
Gentleman from Frederick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Floor Leader, and forgive me if I missed this in your discussion back and forth. Is there an exception in this bill if, God forbid, there are additional full-time lockdowns in the next 2 years?
I'm sorry, Delegate. Can you speak up a little bit? It's hard for me to hear.
I'm sorry, sure. God forbid there's additional lockdowns in the next 2 years. Is there an exception in this bill for that? I was reading the text, didn't see an exception in the event of additional full-time virtual need.
Yeah, so we amended the bill so there's temporary virtual education, which is what you'll see in an emergency situation that has occurred right now. And what we did was added more guidelines, more recommendations, more baseline guidelines for systems to be able to start to implement.
And to clarify, this does not impact in any way private education?
It does not.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further debate? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk will take the call. There being 136 members present, the House is still in session. Calendar of third reading Senate bills, number 23. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 600, Maryland Police Accountability Act of 2021, Office of the State Prosecutor, Investigation and Prosecution of Deaths Caused by Police Officers.
Chair of the committee.
Thank you very, very much, Madam Speaker. Thank you so much. I have an amendment at the desk from the committee. It's amendment number 603029.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
The amendment makes technical and clarifying changes to the independent investigative unit in Senate Bill 600. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Yeah. All right. Senate Bill 600 is on third reading and final passage.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the gentleman from Frederick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would the floor leader rise for a few questions?
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, good to see you.
Hello.
Real quick, I'm just now looking at your amendment, and I guess we adopted that, but is this related to, let's say, like a traffic-related death? Is that what the amendment is supposed to tackle, so to speak?
If it involves the death of a person, or as the amendment says, the alleged death of a person caused by a police officer, it could conceivably be included in the independent investigative unit, yes.
Okay, thank you. A couple more questions while I have you up, if that's okay.
Sure.
All right. So, and I'm trying to wrap my head around, we've had a lot of bills, a lot of it dealing with police reform. I understand that the House had kind of an omni bill that had a lot of parts. The Senate sent over 9 bills, which have been kind of whittled down to a fraction of those. I know that SB 600, for example, has been amended several times. And the part that I wanted to focus on is kind of what you and I are already talking about, which is the independent investigative unit.
Sure.
And the reason I bring that up is because I looked at the police reform work group, which I understand that the vice chair of your committee was the chair of, as the Senate refers to her, the young lady from Howard County. And
I refer to her as the vice chair of the committee.
Sure. Yeah. So where in the work group did it actually mention the Attorney General's office?
There were discussions in the work group as to not only the independent investigation of alleged crimes or alleged deaths caused by a police officer. There was discussions about the independent prosecution, and there were questions about the independent investigation. To that end, however, the vice chair of the committee is here in the wings, and I would be happy to have her speak to those specific issues related to what the work group did. So I'd be happy to yield to the vice chair of the committee.
Perfect. Thank you.
Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Delegate, could you repeat your question, please?
Sure. So I went through the work group that I understand that you were the chair of, and it was a very comprehensive work group. I understand it was over 5 months of time. You had over 90 folks testifying, 27 experts, and as you put it, in quote, 12 strong recommendations coming out of the work group. Is that fair to say?
We met for 10 months. Probably had more experts than that, more folks testify, but yes, that's a fair statement.
Okay. And I was just literally reading your letter to the speaker about the scope of the work group. And my specific question is, I don't remember seeing anything about the Attorney General's office or the state prosecutor on such a comprehensive work group report. And yet we're looking at legislation in front of us that would actually put an investigative unit within the Attorney General's office, likely under the state prosecutor's office, which is technically defined as an independent unit within the Attorney General's office.
So the way the recommendation ended up, the recommendation was that there is an independent investigation. Coming out of the work group, we did not say where that would be housed. So, you used to sit on the fantabulous Judiciary Committee. And so the Judiciary Committee and the Public Safety Committee worked on that issue. The one thing that the work group, did not find resolve with was what to do within a prosecution. So I would say, to answer your question, the work group coupled with the work of the Judiciary Committee, we settled on an independent investigation by the Attorney General's office.
Right, and the reason I stress this is because it is actually quite significant to move that investigation under the Attorney General's office, and yet after 10 months of a comprehensive work group, it's my understanding that you guys did not vote to actually to do that.
The Judiciary Committee, so as you know, the work group met and proposed recommendations to the Speaker, and that was turned into legislation. That legislation was even further vetted by a subcommittee in the Judiciary, and then went through the Judiciary Committee. And the wisdom of the Judiciary Committee was to put that in the body of the Attorney General.
Right, and the reason I bring this up is there's several logistical issues. So, for example, if you had a police-related shooting of some sort, let's say in Ocean City, so we're now going to send, on a Sunday night, we're going to send somebody from the Attorney General's office.
Nope, that's incorrect.
That's not incorrect? That's incorrect?
So what would happen is the Attorney General's folks, so if you read the legislation, the local police department has to notify as soon as there is a shooting that results in death, they have to notify the Attorney General. And essentially they have to stay in contact related to that investigation with the Attorney General's office. So I think you're trying to paint a picture of the Attorney General, someone from his office flying from Baltimore to the shore, which is not what would happen. That local police department, and they do this now, would do the investigation and keep the Attorney General's office notified of what was happening right there on the scene right after everything happened.
But the problem with that logistically is that when you have an injury or a death, things start moving. And when you have local authorities that are afraid to do anything, the risk of getting sued, for an example, because they know that this legislation puts the AG's office over top of them. So how do we deal with that? I mean, how do we reconcile? Typically when there's a death, the first 3 hours are very critical in investigations, public safety, and now we have a scenario where our state's very wide, very long, and we're having to wait for a very small office in Baltimore to all of a sudden just get involved. We got to call them on a Sunday night. We can't do anything. How do we deal with that?
So this was I saw my chair standing, so I will yield to my chair.
Committee chair.
If a police officer was involved in some kind of a death of a citizen, yes, I would expect that the Attorney General's office and the independent investigative unit that would be put in the Attorney General's office would be taking pains to get there as quickly as they can. They have to coordinate with the locals in the very beginning, but then they take over the investigation so that we can make sure that that investigation is done truly independently and so that it's beyond reproach. We need to make sure that we do that so that people have confidence in that investigation.
I mean, are we confident that someone can get from Baltimore to Allegheny County to Worcester County?
There are many roads, yes. There's a bridge right over there. Yes, I'm confident that they could probably get there in about 4 hours, depending on traffic.
All right.
I'll send it back to the Vice Chair.
Okay. So then the second part deals with what we talked about with the amendment. So traffic-related deaths involving the police officer would still be, because I'm reading this amendment here, it says may. So I'm assuming that we would have to contact the Attorney General's office if there was a police-involved traffic death as well?
That is correct. That is correct.
Okay, so now the Attorney General's office, potentially the State Prosecutor's office, that's still a little fuzzy to me, is going to be involved in traffic-related fatalities in Ocean City.
It's the Attorney General's office, so it's not fuzzy.
But the bill title actually said State Prosecutor's office.
I don't know if you're reading the
I'm reading the
recent
reprint.
It's the Attorney General's office, not the State Prosecutor's office.
And you know the State Prosecutor is an independent agency within the Attorney General's office.
It is the Attorney General's office.
Okay, all right. That is true, by the way. You can look it up. So the last part, I'll just say, is that you had a very comprehensive work group. And I know you put your heart into things, consider you a friend. It was a 10-month-long work group, and there was zero mention, there was zero recommendation that the AG would take over these investigations out of that work group.
I would say that is an inaccurate description. And I would like to say I consider you a friend as well. So we agree on that. But I would say that is inaccurate. We had healthy debate in the work group, which was from May to about October, whether or not the Attorney General would deal with the investigation and the prosecution, both one or the other. And time ran out for the work group. We did not make that decision. And so the committee made that decision in their wisdom.
So just for everyone's edification, and this is my last question. So under no circumstances does the State Prosecutor's Office potentially may or may not be underneath the Attorney General is going to be taking over these investigations?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Talwood.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Following the discussion that we all just heard, there's a section of the bill that deals with the office of the, hold on one second, of the Independent Investigative Unit. And I have an amendment, and the amendment deals with that section. The amendment's at the desk. It's Amendment 723127/1.
Amendment number 1.
So much be moved. So much be moved as a reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, the amendment that is in your floor system that's before you for this bill, I'll summarize it for you. It simply says that the Department of State Police shall oversee investigations conducted by the investigative unit. It simply says the Maryland State Police shall oversee investigations conducted by the investigative unit. Personally, I prefer an amendment that would just have the state police conduct all these investigations. Knowing that this is a priority bill, I don't want to push the envelope. I want to have the best possible presentation for you to consider. The amendment means an awful lot. You know, we're debating police reform, and it's a very political issue. It's a very emotional issue, and we're trying to find the best way to move forward. And I can understand that, and I can appreciate that, and I want to thank everyone for the time and the effort that they put into this. However, we're talking about a death. You know, this is unlike any political conversation. This is reality. This is as real as life gets. You know, there's a few moments in life that can't be compared. Unfortunately, death is one of them. So of all these discussions and how we address this, to me, this is absolutely critical. Now, right now, the state police, they're the only statewide agency. The homicide unit is the only statewide agency that conducts these investigations. This bill creates a new office in the Attorney General's office. These people don't exist. The office doesn't exist. They've never done this before. And yes, they are located in Baltimore. The amendment simply says that the Maryland State Police shall oversee all of these investigations. The Maryland State Police are located in all parts of our state. The Maryland State Police have the expertise, the proven expertise, to do these investigations. There's no other state entity, any other state unit that can stand up to the work that the state police have done. Yeah, there's been cases where they've been criticized. There's been cases where they've been pushed and pulled, but they've stood strong every time. So getting back to what we're talking about, death. There's no make good on the loss of a life. Whether it was a good person, a bad person, an in-between person, whether it was an accident, it's silence. There's no going back. There's nothing you can do to make up for the loss of a life. But the one thing that we can do right, is get the investigation and the answers and the information done properly. So why would we roll the dice and say, we've got a brand new idea, we can do it better, it's never been done before, we're going to create this office. And I understand the politics, so I understand why the office is being created. The amendment doesn't get rid of the office. It simply takes the Maryland State Police and has them oversee the investigation. And I think there'll be a lot of debate about this because there was a discussion about the investigative office running these investigations remotely. I have not done crime scenes, but I can't imagine any investigator doing a crime scene remotely. If for any reason, take yourself away from the politics of police reform and think about the families and the people who were left 3 hours after the scene, whether they're in the hospital or whether they're home, and they're looking at one another and they want answers. What are we going to give to them? Are we going to give them Maryland's finest, or are we going to give them a new idea? This amendment, to me, would provide a level of guarantee to our citizens that Maryland's finest would be in charge of these investigations. I'll press the amendment.
Committee Chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd ask the body to resist the amendment. In the bill, it indicates that to investigate and assist with the investigation of the alleged criminal offenses committed by police officers, the Independent Investigative Unit may detail one or more police officers employed by the Department of the State Police and other civilian personnel as needed. This unit would be housed in the Office of the Attorney General, so that it was, in fact, independent from that police department. It will be staffed by troopers from the state police who are employed by the state police, but it is kept separate, especially because when there is a death that has been alleged by a police officer, we need to make sure that that unit is separate and distinct from that particular unit. There is a possibility that a Maryland State Police officer, a Maryland State Trooper, could be involved in a police-related death. We need to make sure that that unit is separate, and the Attorney General's office has people with the experience prosecuting these cases. The people in this unit will have the experience over the long term investigating these cases. It's worth mentioning, with no disrespect to the Maryland State Police, that they don't come into Baltimore City. They don't come into big chunks of the state that have significant issues related to homicides, related to deaths. The depth of experience on those issues, generally speaking, is in other parts of the state, and that is absolutely with no disrespect to the Maryland State Police whatsoever. What's important is that this is an independent unit, it is separate, and it's able to do its work to make sure that we get a full investigation of the death that occurred. I'd ask you to resist the amendment.
The maker of the amendment.
Just quickly, and I want to turn the debate over. The state police right now investigate police. They've got the only unit that goes around the state and investigates police. Okay, they do this, and they do it with professionalism, and they do it with expertise, and they have a lot of success. And let me tell you, the case where you want the state police involved is when you have a police force that isn't doing right. If the police force isn't doing right, do you think the Attorney General's investigative unit calling them on the phone is going to make them fix themselves? If they've got problems, you don't want somebody handling it from the phone. You want the state police there on the ground to straighten things out. They do it now, and in my view, we need them to execute this. Thank you.
Gentleman from Caroline.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The tragedy that struck my community on September 15th, 2018, provided the impetus for not just this bill, but many bills this session. That tragedy happened about 3 miles from my house. And I can tell you, I was angry initially. Our entire community was angry. That was our first emotion that we felt. We were all sad. Anton Black was a track star at North Carolina High School. He's a very well-respected young man. As the resident delegate of Caroline County, having lived in Caroline County most of my entire life, and as a state delegate, I wanted to make sure that I stayed informed about what was going on. And if you all remember, back in January 2019, when this was being investigated, it was investigated by the Maryland State Police. And if you all remember, it took a while. They were very, very deliberate in their investigation, and that was on purpose. That was deliberate. They wanted to make sure that every stone was unturned. They wanted to do the best job that they could possibly do. And the Office of the Medical Examiner did exactly the same thing. In fact, many of us were so frustrated, we went to the governor's office, and the governor put pressure on that office to expedite things. And they didn't do it at first, because they wanted to make sure that they were getting the right information. Our state's attorney did exactly the same thing. The town of Greensboro did that. The town of Ridgely did that. The town of Centerville did exactly that. They were very cooperative throughout the entire investigations. Those 3 towns had their own independent investigation done. Local Government Insurance Trust, they analyzed this thing also. And in fact, our state's attorney reached out to the governor's office, who requested a separate investigation after the Maryland State Police investigated this with the U.S. Department of Justice and their Civil Rights Division. And I'm going to read you a letter from them that talks about how well this process worked. Dear Governor Hogan, this responds to your letter dated January 25th, 2019, in which you request that the Civil Rights Division initiate an investigation into the tragic death of Anton Black on September 15th, 2018, following a struggle with officers from the Greensboro Police Department and other Maryland law enforcement agencies. We apologize for the delay in responding to your letter. The Civil Rights Division Criminal Section investigates and prosecutes violations of federal criminal civil rights statutes, including those pertaining to any willful use of excessive force by police officers. To establish a violation of applicable statute 18 USA 242, the government must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that an officer acting under the color of law willfully deprived an individual of a right protected by the Constitution or laws of the United States. In other words, in order to prove a violation of applicable federal criminal civil rights law, prosecutors would have to prove beyond any reasonable doubt that a law enforcement officer acted both unreasonable and willfully. Courts have defined the willfulness element to require proof that a defendant knew his or her actions were unlawful and that the defendant committed those acts in open defiance of the law. Even negligence, mistake, and bad judgment are insufficient to establish such criminal violation. Now, please pay close attention to this paragraph. We are aware of the circumstances surrounding Mr. Black's death, and we have carefully reviewed the relevant body camera video of his apprehension. We have also carefully reviewed other available evidence in this case, including the results of an investigation conducted by the Maryland State Police and the autopsy report produced by the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner for the state of Maryland. Based on our review, we have determined that the evidence does not disclose any prosecutable violation of federal criminal civil rights statutes. Accordingly, we cannot authorize a federal investigation in this matter. Despite our inability to grant your request for a federal investigation, we extend our deepest sympathies to the friends and family of Mr. Black. Folks, our state's attorney did his job. The Maryland State Police did their job. The Office of the Medical Chief Examiner did their job. And yes, I can, and I'm confident that if this happens in the office of the Maryland State Police and there's a close connection there, they're not going to do their own investigation. They're not. They're better than that. The state of Maryland's better than that. So if it's not broken, and it's not, then let's not try to fix it. We're trying to create a solution here for a problem that does not exist. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Any further debate? Gentleman from Talbot.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'll just close. For everybody in the body, put yourself in this ominous situation. You know, you're going to have to you're going to get your answers from one of two people. It's either going to be Jerry Jones, the Superintendent of State Police, or it's going to be Brian Frosch. And I know what's going on in the Attorney General's office right now is nothing like the Department of Labor, but I am so tired of trying to call government agencies and to get a straight answer. And you call the state police have done this, you're going to get the straight facts, you're having a professional investigation, and this doesn't even change the will of the committee. It just supplants the professionalism of state police to oversee what's being done by the Attorney General's office.
Is there any further debate? Gentleman still pressing his amendment?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
On the amendment.
Whoops.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Roll call, Madam Speaker.
Roll call.
Madam Speaker?
A gentleman from Montgomery to explain his vote in the annex. Is the gentleman from... Clerk will take the call. The amendment fails. Gentleman from Ocean City.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk, but before I offer that, I'd like to ask some questions, if I may.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So the delegate from Frederick County, he made a good point, but he said on a Sunday evening in Ocean City. So let's make that a Friday evening when the Bay Bridge is backed up and that 4 hours is much longer. So with this independent agency, I really have to believe our local state's attorney and sheriffs would probably advise that we do nothing until the proper agency arrives, based on the chairs mentioned that they would be trying to get there as soon as possible. So we have a situation where this could be laying out for hours, and I'm just a simple country landlord and really not familiar with this kind of stuff, but I think the most valuable time, especially in a crowded place like Ocean City, we're losing the most valuable time. So is this absolutely the process?
The locals would begin the investigation in consultation with the independent investigation unit, and then the investigators from that agency would then go and get to where the alleged incident happened, and then they'd take over the investigation.
But because this vote would be a vote against the confidence of our local state's attorney and sheriff, suppose they say, you know what, if this is what you want, this is what you have, and we're waiting for you. That could be a scenario, correct?
I wouldn't characterize this as a vote against anything. I think it's a vote for an independent investigative agency and an independent investigative unit who can guarantee that in cases like this, that there is an independent investigation, that it is done well, and that it addresses issues when a police officer is allegedly involved in the death of a citizen.
Well, let me ask you this. Who would hire and fire this independent agency?
It would be within the Office of the Attorney General. So the Attorney General would engage in hiring and firing. They'd hire people who were already employed by the Department of State Police, and then they would also hire civilian employees. And certainly what we are envisioning is they would hire civilian employees who are perhaps retired law enforcement who also would be able to bring experience to the unit.
So do we have an idea of a fiscal note of this new agency, the hiring, the requirements, the travel requirements, the lodging, and all the new stuff that's going to come with it?
The state's attorney, the Attorney General believes that they can do it within their current resources. So I don't believe that it's going to cost more. But having said that, these people would already, the officers, the troopers would already been employed by the Maryland State Police. They would just be assigned to the independent investigative unit.
So now I'm confused. So we're going to hire all these people, but we're going to do it at the current cost under the current budget that we have right now. Does that sound
understanding
realistic?
From the Attorney General's office?
Okay, but would you agree that doesn't sound? I mean, how could that be possible? We're going to hire all these people and not pay them anything, or? I mean, it's not practical. The answer.
I think that again, I'm relying on what the Attorney General's office has indicated, and I'm relying on the fact that, again, as it says in the bill, the people who are the troopers who are involved are actually already employed by the Maryland State Police.
Okay, Madam Speaker, I'm going to offer my amendment. It's Amendment 883126-01.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So this amendment is very simple. It basically eliminates the independent investigative agency. What it does is puts the responsibility in the hands where it lies right now. I was hoping the previous amendment would have been accepted and would have saved me the effort that I'm putting out right now. But we're talking about hiring people through the Attorney General's office where right now, locally, we hire people that are accountable to the voters every 4 years. And what I said earlier, that a vote against this amendment is truly a vote against our state's attorney and our sheriff. I represent 2 counties, Worcester and Wycomico County. In Wycomico County, our sheriff is the highest vote getter out of a countywide election. Very well respected. Our state's attorneys are well respected. And I just believe that we need to leave the power. I mean, let's hope this situation doesn't arise where we actually need to use it. But when it does, I know I personally want to put this in the hands that somebody who's there, that's going to be there quickly. I'm very hesitant as to the time delays, that the precious time that's going to be lost waiting for somebody to get to one extreme of the state to another. And I sincerely believe that a vote against this amendment, every red vote up there, is going to be a message to their state's attorney that you don't have confidence in the job that they do. And I mean that sincerely. I ask for your support on this amendment. Thank you.
Chairman of the committee.
A red vote on the board says that we believe that there needs to be an independent investigative unit to investigate when police officers are involved in some way in the death of a citizen of the state of Maryland or of a citizen of anywhere. We want to make sure that there is an independent investigative unit. Now, I've been reminded the reason that we don't think that it's going to cost a lot for the Attorney General's office to do is that this, fortunately, did not happen very much in 2019 when there were 13 killings that the police officers were involved in. That is too many, to be sure, in and of itself, but it is not a very large number. In these cases, in these extreme cases, we need to make sure that there is some kind of an independent unit so that the investigation is done well, and so that the investigation is done with the quality that we need to ensure to make sure that people again can have confidence that when these kind of terrible incidents happen, that it isn't the police officers from that jurisdiction investigating one of their own. There needs to be that separation, and that's what this bill would do. So with that, I ask for a red vote.
Any further debate? Gentlelady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mr. Chair, could I ask you a real quick question? I just thought of something and thought I might ask. Sure. Will the people that are going to be hired or investigating that are working for the AG's office, are they going to be under the same police training standards that we're building right now, or will they not be because they're actually retired civilians?
The civilians in the office would not be, because they would not be law enforcement officers under the definition of the bill. The troopers would already be under the definitions of the bill.
Okay,
so it depends on who we're talking about.
So if the AG's, I think the bill gives the discretion to the AG of who he assigns to do the investigating. So he could potentially be sending people out to do the investigating who are not up to date on the best practices that we're building right now for our police officers in the new structure of the Maryland Police Training Commission.
The investigators, I'm sorry, ask your question again?
The investigators who the AG chooses may not be troopers. They could be civilians who are retired, and they would then not be falling under the new structure that we've built for the Police Training Commission.
The investigators, I mean, the new structure for the Police Training Commission is dealing with issues related to use of force and dealing with issues related to a wide range of different topics. Just because somebody was a civilian working for the independent investigative unit doesn't mean that they would not also be up to speed on those issues. And I suspect that that the unit and the Attorney General would naturally go ahead and look for people who were up to speed on those issues.
Yeah,
so I don't think that would be an issue.
Yeah, I would hope so. It's just hit me that they wouldn't be required to be certified under that, and I think that's a little concerning to me. I did not realize that till just now. Thank you for answering my questions, though.
Gentlelady from Hartford, Indy Annex, on the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I do stand up in support of this amendment, although I've gone, I think, like 90 degrees around and back from what the original bill was. So excuse me if I get some facts not correct, because it has changed quite a bit, but I think I do have it down, believe it or not. But anyway, I do rise up to support the amendment because I do believe that the creation of this independent investigative unit is far overreaching. As my good delegates before me, they had mentioned that it does take away the local jurisdiction from our chiefs and our sheriffs. It diminishes their roles as chiefs and sheriffs and actually limits their ability to hold their officers accountable for their bad actions. This new unit that is being created, I guess it would be the right word, I believe is another layer of just bureaucracy and not needed under the Attorney General's office, which clearly in the past has shown that he definitely operates not in a bipartisan fashion in most cases. So I believe that this is, brings in the bad politics of this, and policing is none of that and should not be. First I did think, but I believe the amendment that was just taken by the committee, it's taking, it is still under the Attorney General's office, but it's not investigated by the independent state prosecutor's office. But I'm assuming that since that independent unit is under the Attorney General, those folks, which I believe he currently has a staff of 14, his budget is $1.7 million. I'm assuming that the Attorney General can reach out, and I guess the floor chair can answer that when I'm finished, can reach out to these folks. And I looked up some of the crimes that they currently actually process, and I couldn't find anything such as, murder from a police officer murdering an individual, a citizen by car, or by shooting or stabbing or whatever. Some of the crimes that they've currently processed is perjury, misconduct, theft, bank fraud, wiretapping, pandemic violations, and leave policy. Now, those crimes do not, I wouldn't want a fellow officer being investigated by someone that has only knowledge of this, this level of crimes. Then I looked into the actual Attorney General's office, moving past the state's prosecutor's office. Well, actually, the Attorney General's office, I consider them more lawyers than they are investigators. That's why we had in the past the Maryland State Police involved in investigations of sort. Some of the things that they do, and even on their website, is protecting our citizens, consumer protection, environment protection, and Medicaid fraud. So again, there is nothing there that would suggest that they would be qualified to do such investigations if a law enforcement is involved in some type of murder. So for those reasons, Madam Chair, I do believe that this is the wrong place for this new unit to do the investigations of our police officers. And it doesn't say shall have a active police officer on that unit. So again, I think that should be, maybe the floor chair again can verify that. I know my good delegate right in front of me, but I wasn't sure exactly what the answer was. So, how many active law enforcement officers are going to be on this investigative team? And my last point, Madam Speaker, is that, after this investigation is done by this unit, there is no accountability of this unit. So the chiefs and the sheriffs cannot come back if they feel that this was, was unjust or whatever, and that police officer winds up back on the job, working with his fellow law enforcement officers, and the chief or sheriff, thought that they needed to have more discipline or actually be terminated. They don't have that option. They don't have that choice. So the investigative unit has no accountability towards them at all. And our chiefs and local sheriffs do locally by, by their citizens that elected them in that position. So for those reasons, I do press the amendment, and if the floor leader, could answer those questions, I would certainly appreciate it.
Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I enjoy calling you Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's interesting. I just want to circle back to the reason why not only did the work group and the Public Safety Subcommittee and the Judiciary Committee think there needed to be an independent investigation. And it's ironic that the delegate that just stood up represents 2 counties, one of which is Cecil. There was just a very interesting article on March 31st, I believe it was, in the Washington Post about how the sheriff in Cecil County is unresponsive to the needs of African Americans in that county. There had been several recent incidents of individuals getting stopped in that county, African Americans. One gentleman was pulled from his car while his 2-year-old daughter and girlfriend were in the vehicle, and the community demanded answers. A woman who recently moved there from Philadelphia demanded answers. And she said, for weeks now, quote, "You've ignored us." She said, "We did the right thing by sending you a nice letter, an email, and asking you to respond to their questions about policing in their community." And the sheriff didn't. So she and some others took to organizing and protesting in Cecil County. This is exactly why we need independent investigations in every single county, to make sure that the police aren't policing their own, that the police are responsive to every community member, no matter whether you're in Cecil County, Worcester County, Howard County, Baltimore City, but that they are taking care of the citizens. And I also want to state that this is not a new and novel idea. Where this is done, the chair already said that there is coordination. They do this in other states. There's coordination at the early stages with the Attorney General's office until the Attorney General takes it over. So for those reasons, Madam Speaker, I would urge the body to resist this amendment.
Madam Speaker.
Maker of the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Once again, I believe during the testimony there were state's attorneys that absolutely testified against this. I will ask you once again to support your state's attorneys and your sheriffs with the green vote on this amendment. Madam Speaker, I ask you to press the amendment.
Madam Speaker.
Vice Chair.
Thank you. One more thing, just because that was incorrect. The state's attorneys actually testified they thought there should be an independent investigation. That's why the work group made that recommendation. The State's Attorneys Association said there should be independent investigations.
On the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed?
Roll call, Madam Speaker.
Roll call.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Cecil in the annex to explain his vote.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I had actually pressed my button earlier. I wanted to respond to the comments that were made about Cecil County, but I'll go ahead and do that here. To the gentlelady that spoke earlier, I just want to make the record very clear that the Sheriff's Office did share the video in its entirety of said suspect, and said suspect did hit the officer with their door when they were asked to get out of the car after the officer realized that they're driving on a suspended license. On the amendment, I support this amendment. That's why I have a green vote up. And if we'd like to talk offline about the incident, I'm surely open to that. But I'd like to keep it on the amendment and don't appreciate the distractions from the amendment. And that's why I got a green vote up there. Thank you.
Gentleman from Talbot to explain his vote.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just very quickly, I can't speak for all the jurisdictions all of them. I got 4. I got Talbot, Caroline, Dorchester, and Wacomico. And you heard that the State's Attorneys Association supported this. Now, I don't know what's going on in your jurisdictions, but I've talked to my jurisdictions, and they may not be sending letterhead and signing things, but to sit there and say that the state's attorneys think this is a good idea is more than misleading. I just wanted to explain my vote. Thank you.
Clerk will take the call. The amendment fails.
Madam Speaker.
Gentlelady from Howard.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have a question. We have a number of different bills on this particular topic, and the House bill, your bill, 670, creates a whole series of committees and commissions, and one of them sounds very much like this. It's called the Independent Investigative Agency, establishes an independent unit of the state government for the purpose of investigating use of force incidents involving police officers. And I don't know whether any thought has been given to what happens if we pass laws that are incompatible. And I just wondered if the floor leader had looked at this, and is it consistent? Would it be the same entity, or what happens if we do pass things that are inconsistent?
Committee chair.
I don't think that's likely to happen in this case. The House bill is 670, went over to the Senate. The Senate, in its deliberations, removed this part of the legislation, so this would be the vehicle for this issue, for the independent investigation unit.
But is it still in 670?
It's no longer in 670. No.
Oh.
Or it was no longer in 670 as the Senate passed it and as we offered to go to conference.
Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Senate Bill 600 is on. Gentlelady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to clarify for the body. I just pulled up in my system this bill, and I decided to look at the unfavorables. I'll just really quick read them to you. Prince George's County State's Attorney, unfavorable. Baltimore City State's Attorney, unfavorable. Harford County State's Attorney, unfavorable. And I also want to mention just a few words from State's Attorney Braveboy's letter, where she speaks in detail about the unit that she has that is tasked with investigating exactly these crimes. In fact, she states that they are all reviewed independently and that she has also investigated numerous cases involving deaths of citizens. She was not a fan of this bill. So I will be a red vote on this. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Oh, my goodness. Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The bill as introduced, the State's Attorneys Association, well, prior to even the bill being introduced, the State's Attorneys Association, their president came in and testified, that's how it works, on behalf of the State's Attorneys Association and their executive director, saying that they fully support an independent investigation. That is their position. They had no position on who did the investigation or where it was housed. So that was their position, for the record. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. With the floor leader Ashley is already there. Just got a quick question. I'm looking at this bill, and it just doesn't look like the other section of it fits. You have, I've never seen that many bills that are completely different. One of them talk about the investigative part, and then the other part talks about the destructive devices and surplus. Why is this stuck in this bill? And then why, under this bill, we want to prohibit our law enforcement agency from having the tools necessary to do their job?
Committee Chair.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. The There are a range of different Senate bills that were passed over. We were trying to do this in a fairly efficient manner, and so the issues that are in this bill deal with the militarization of police and with the Independent Investigation Unit. What the bill does on the militarization of police is it says, for example, that police departments cannot buy surplus grenade launchers, cannot buy surplus destructive devices, or a weaponized aircraft, drone, or vehicle, among other things. The idea being there's a genuine issue with regard to the militarization and to the militarization of police departments, and so this says you cannot buy those on surplus with your funds.
So you can buy them new, but not from the federal government?
You can buy them new if you need a weaponized aircraft, but you can't buy them surplus from the federal government.
So I'm just trying to understand, why not buy them surplus? What's the difference? If you're going to get a drone or aircraft or a vehicle, why not get them from the federal government if they're selling it as a surplus, which is probably a cost saving for the jurisdiction?
Because we're making a policy call that says that we don't think you need to go out of your way in order to buy a grenade launcher, a weaponized aircraft, weaponized drone, weaponized vehicle. That those are not things that we need you to go out and buy on the cheap.
Right, but shouldn't the local police department make those decisions, not us policymakers? They know their job and they know what's needed.
Well, us policymakers do things all the time. And us policymakers think that it's inappropriate for local police departments to have weaponized aircraft, for example.
So, right, what about vehicle and drones? I mean, we have a lot of issues.
Weaponized drones, weaponized vehicles.
Weaponized as in like what?
They are vehicles that are weapons that have weapons installed within the vehicles.
Oh, so you can have weapons. Okay. So again, what about the single subject? They don't flow together. So I'm just trying to understand how this bill is connected with the other bill together.
They are, we had House Bill 670 that had both of these issues in them as well. They broadly go to the execution of police work in the state of Maryland, and that's why they're together in the bill.
Right, but investigation is different than weapons. And two wrongs don't make wrong, right? I mean, just because we had another bill that had it doesn't mean this bill should have it either.
Well, they both have to do with policing, and they both have to do with how policing is carried out, and so that's why they're in the bill together.
Would you be open to special order this? Because I want to put an amendment on this because I'm not clear or convinced rather, that it's not a single subject.
No, I think we've debated this quite long enough. I think that we've heard amendments here today, and I would ask the body to resist a special order.
But we didn't debate the single subject part. We just debated the bill itself, but I think there's an issue with the bill that I'd rather, separate them at least and have the opportunity to separate them.
Are you making a motion?
Yes.
Okay. We depose the motion to special order here. Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, can I
The
make a motion?
question is the motion on the floor. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Roll call.
Roll call.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk will take the call. Motion fails.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Western Maryland.
Thank you. I had a question before we vote, obviously, on third reader from either my friend from Howard County, the vice chair of the committee, or the chair, whoever would like to address this. This special investigative unit that we've discussed this evening that would rest within the ambit of the Attorney General's office, it says in a section of the bill, I'm on page 3 of 5, I can't really read it back, but it says that the special investigative unit has the ability to investigate and assist with the investigation of alleged criminal offenses committed by police officers. Within the context of the word investigation, would the Attorney General's office that spearheads this unit, would they have the ability to convene a grand jury so as to bring in witnesses and present the case, or would that be specifically reserved only for the local state's attorney in the jurisdiction within which the offense was allegedly committed?
in the bill, and in the bill as amended tonight, they would have the ability to use the grand jury in any county, in the county that it happened.
Okay,
presumably in
so
this case.
that's in the bill as amended tonight. So after the bill was already on the floor last week, the committee has again offered a committee amendment. If I recall, it seems
Correct.
like a long time ago that we started this discussion. The committee has now changed the bill from what it was last week to now saying that this particular investigative unit, really the Attorney General's office as in connection with the unit, could convene a grand jury outside of the ability or the authority of the local state's attorney in that county. They could do it independently?
They could do it independently as part of the investigation of a police-involved death.
In my experience, at least, and I could be wrong about this, but in my experience, at least, a grand jury, the end result of a grand jury investigation is an indictment. And an indictment is a prosecutorial act as opposed to an investigatory act. It is a determination of that there's probable cause to suggest that a crime has been committed under the laws of the state of Maryland, and that the state will prosecute that crime. So the amendment that you've discussed, would that change? Because I know you and I had a little bit of a colloquy, I believe Friday evening, about how this bill was now designed to allow for an independent investigative unit, but the prosecution of these alleged offenses would still rest within the exclusive authority or control of the local prosecutor, the elected state's attorney. But now, if the investigative unit and the Attorney General can go and pursue a grand jury investigation that produces an indictment, would that not in some way supersede the prosecutorial discretion of the local state's attorney?
No, there's a quirk in our law with regard to the issuance of subpoenas requires that for the Attorney General to be able to do their work, or the independent investigative unit to do their work under the ambit of the Attorney General, they would have to be able to use the grand jury in order to issue those subpoenas to people. So that's the reason for the grand jury, and we got that in large measure because we heard from the Attorney General again just to say, okay, wait, we need to make sure that that's there. As the bill is now also says that the Attorney General would not actually prosecute these cases, and we talked about that last week, and that still remains. They're not going to prosecute these cases. They would turn over a report to the local state's attorney.
Okay, so the grand jury then, if I'm getting this correct, and sometimes I'm sure everyone in the body thinks, why are they belaboring these points? But you and I both understand that it creates a legislative record for future courts to understand and interpret what we meant by our language. And so if I'm getting this correct, what the committee amendment has done, and my mask keeps falling obviously, what the committee amendment has done is said we'll allow grand juries to be used in the local jurisdictions from which the cases arise solely for the purpose of issuing subpoenas to witnesses so as to compel participation in the investigative unit's investigation, not to pursue indictments of the officers independently.
Correct. There's nothing in the bill that gives the Attorney General's office, or in this area, in the independent investigative unit, the ability to indict, the ability to prosecute.
Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it.
The gentleman from Cal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Floor Leader, could I ask a question? We were talking a minute ago about surplus military items. Could you tell me if you ready? Yeah. Could you tell me if an instance where in Calvert County where we have a SWAT team that's one of their responsibilities is the protection of Dominion Code Point gas plant plus the water and the platform out in the bay. And from time to time, they receive the ability to be able to buy a surplus boat that they use anytime there's a tanker at the docks. The boats are in the water 24/7. Would that exclude them from having the ability to take a donation or to buy a surplus from the Navy, or a vehicle, that all-terrain vehicle that could be used on the grounds down to the woods and down on the shore area? Would that stop them from being able to do that?
I don't believe that that's the case. However, having said that, we have our expert on all things militarized, the delegate from Montgomery County, and I'd like to yield to him, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I wouldn't have the concern that you are expressing about that particular vehicle. There was at some point in this discussion a debate about whether to prohibit both armored and weaponized and armored vehicles, and I think the language that you see before you simply refers to weaponized vehicles. So all of that other business with armored vehicles was kicked out. Not only that, the departments can still buy it with their own money. The bill was really trying to stop these unnecessary and excess transfers basically for free from the Pentagon over to local police departments. So you can get it from yourself if you feel you need to spend your own budget on that. That's your prerogative. But again, this is only about weaponized military equipment.
Well, I think my argument with you on that is these boats that they use out in the bay are weaponized. I mean, they're not out there just going around patrolling them waters with no weapons on them. And some of them have some fairly significant weapons on them. They don't necessarily put it out there because there's no reason to let everybody in the world know what they have there. But as far as the boat being weaponized, it probably is. It seems a waste of taxpayers' money to be able to buy a boat or a piece of equipment that could be used for another 5 or 10 years that they can get from the military at a really reasonable price, or some Humvees that may be armorized that they can use on the land where the rough and through the woods and down on the shorelines. It just seems like a real waste of money. Now, I would assume when I first read this, we were talking more about this military equipment that would be used on the streets and in the neighborhoods. But then it finally dawned on me that most counties, especially Calvert, has the technical SWAT teams that patrol and protect some pretty hard targets. And I'm sure there's other counties in the state that have the same thing. It just seems very wasteful to take the taxpayers' money to purchase new equipment like that when they can get it at a reasonable price from the military and use it for the tactical purposes that they have. So, yeah, I'm a little upset and concerned about that. And, you know, I would think there needs to be some kind of wordage in there that allows them to be able to do that.
Yeah, thank you. And I would just say that when that reasonable price for the militarized equipment is free, the concern was, and it continues to be, that police departments will say, oh, this is free, and they start loading up on unnecessary equipment, and that once you have that equipment in the hands of local departments, again, we're talking about weaponized military equipment, that equipment starts to being used in inappropriate situations. I think we saw great debate over the last decade, I'd say, about seeing armored military vehicles starting to appear to police civilian speech in the United States. And so for the last several years, we've seen a wave of this. The Obama administration banned many of these types of transfers, and we did not see problems arising from that policy. So again, we are just talking about weaponized vehicles. If some local police department here seems to think they need a warship, patrolling in the Chesapeake Bay or off the coast of Ocean City, I suppose they can go into their budget and try to justify that. But at least we will have that discussion. Again, if the price is free, we fear that these are going to become toys overused by local police departments.
Well, I take a little offense to that because, trust me, when these boys are out there on that bay guarding them ships full of LNG, they're not out there playing games. They're out there protecting people's lives and protecting the boaters and the people that are on the Chesapeake Bay. This isn't fun and games. They don't load up on this stuff down there because, they're not looking at ordinary citizens. They're looking at terrorists. They're looking at people that could be out there to do harm to this country. And to say they're out there loading up to play games is offensive. That shows a total disrespect from you for the police department. Now, I don't get upset very often, but I just think your comments are way out of line, and I think that they should have the ability to save the taxpayers some money so we can put more money in our schools, more money for our people that are getting evicted from their homes in the counties, and more rental and affordable housing. Now, if there's something wrong with that, then I'm not sure why I'm even here.
Gentleman from Charles.
Thank you for that spirited comment, my colleague from Southern Maryland. I disagree wholeheartedly. I'm terrified to hear this. We have a Department of Homeland Security, for Christ's sakes. We've got the Coast Guard. We've got the National Guard. Are you telling me that now we're going to rely on local police officers, regardless of their training? We have these individuals. That's who I want to rely on when it comes to weaponized vehicles. They're not saying you can't buy them. They're saying you're not going to take them for free, because if you have toys, you're going to play with them. We don't want you playing with them. I understand that's what they might be doing, but I pray as God is my witness that we use our military for what they deserve to be used for, and our National Guard. And if we have a shortfall in your jurisdiction and there's something that's not safe, then our National Guard needs to be involved. We should not be relying on a single entity to protect such valuable assets with donated property, outdated property that may or may not work, because they're not giving it away, guys, because it's great. They're not giving it away because it's top of the line. You get it because it's outdated. The last thing you know is a flak vest that's been donated, because they have a shelf life of 7 years. So if you get one, you do so at your own risk. There comes a time when we have to face facts. We do want our military to be in charge of these things. I'm not casting aspersions on our military or the gentleman from Southern Maryland, but we do have to draw a line between military and Department of Homeland Security responsibility and our local county and municipality police forces. Please don't fall into this. We're not stripping them of what they have to do. They just might need to ask for help. Thank you.
Gentleman from Calvert.
My only response back to that is, you talk about drawing a line. The line got drawn when the Coast Guard came to the county years back and said, we can no longer patrol the boats that are out in the bay. We will not do that anymore. You have to come up with your own people to be able to protect that boat when it's in dock. They bring it up the bay, they take it down the bay. But when it's docked to that dock out off of Cove Point, we have 10 sheriff's deputies, SWAT teams that are paid for by Dominion, that are man them boats out there because the Coast Guard decided they no longer wanted to spend the money to do it.
Is there any further debate? Senate Bill 600 is on third reading and final passage. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
To explain my vote, Madam Speaker?
Gentlelady from Baltimore County to explain her vote.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to just explain why I'm a red vote in a very succinct manner. I'm just going to read you guys a quote. We must reform our system. We must gain back the public trust, but we must do so in a way that aligns with the separation of powers requirement of our Constitution, and in a way that allows elected prosecutors the authority to independently investigate and prosecute these serious matters in their own jurisdictions. I urge an unfavorable report on Senate Bill 600. State's Attorney Bravevoy. Thank you very much.
The gentleman from Montgomery to explain his vote.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, it is our responsibility as legislators to wrestle with data and to craft public policy based on that. The U.S. criminal legal system declines to prosecute 97% of police killings nationwide. 1% result in a conviction. I heard a lot of members invoke Anton Black's name and what happened to him on this floor to make their arguments as to being an opposition of this bill. But what was clear from that case and why I introduced and continue to introduce Anton's law is that we did not have, and we still do not have, independent investigations and independent prosecutions of police killings. I know this was something that was discussed at length on the work group. We could not have come to an understanding, but I think this bill gets us here. I myself had concerns, but recognizing that it was the same state prosecutor's office that investigated and brought charges against the former police chief of Greensboro, Michael Petio, for misconduct in office for doing what? Intentionally withholding information about the officer involved in Anton's Black death from the Maryland Police Trainings and Standards Commission. The own state's attorney for Caroline County also declined to bring charges against not one, but all of the officers involved in Anton Black's death. We need a different system. We can have debates about what that looks like, but we need to get to a place where there are independent investigations and prosecutions that provides family with justice, with answers, and communities with closure. I'll be voting green on this. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay. Clerk will take the call. There being 97 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 600, having received a Constitutional majority, is declared passed. Message from the Senate. House Bill 6. The clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 6, Economic Development, Maryland Technology Development Corporation, alterations.
Clerk will read the message from the Senate.
Ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate does not receive in the Senate amendments and agrees to a conference committee to confer the disagreeing votes of the two houses. This House has appointed Delegate D. Barnes chair, Delegate Feldmark, and Delegate Long. The Senate appoints Senator Hayes chair, Senator Augustine, and Senator Reedy. Said bill is returned herewith.
Senate Bill 107. The clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 107, Labor and Employment, Secure Maryland Wage Act.
Clerk will read the message from the Senate.
Ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate refused to concur in the House amendments and respectfully requests the House receive from this position. Should the House prefer a conference committee to confer the disagreeing votes of the two houses, the Senate appoints Senator Hayes chair, Senator Bidle, and Senator Augustine. Said bill is returned herewith.
The clerk will read the message to the Senate.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the House of Delegates does not recede in the House amendments to the Senate bill and agrees to a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses. The Senate has appointed Senator Hayes chair, Senator Bidle, and Senator Augustine. The House appoints Delegate Dumais chair, Delegate Valderrama, and Delegate Shi. Said bill is returned herewith.
Senate Bill 205. The clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 205, Alcoholic Beverages, Sale or Delivery for Off-Premises Consumption.
Clerk will read the message from the Senate.
Ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate refused to concur in the House amendments and respectfully requests the House receive its position. Should the House prefer a conference committee to confer the disagreeing votes of the two houses, the Senate appoints Senator Simon Ayer chair, Senator Pinsky, and Senator Washington. Said bill is returned herewith.
The clerk will read the message to the Senate.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the House of Delegates does not recede in the House amendments to the Senate bill and agrees to a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses. The Senate has appointed Senator Simon Ayer chair, Senator Pinsky, and Senator Washington. The House appoints Delegate D.E. Davis chair, Delegate T. Branch, and Delegate C. Watson. Said bill is returned herewith.
Senate Bill 762. The clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 762, Maryland Electricians Act, revisions.
The clerk will read the message from the Senate.
Ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate refused to concur in the House amendments and respectfully requests the House recede from its position. Should the House prefer a conference committee to confer the disagreeing votes of the two houses, the Senate appoints Senator Pinsky chair, Senator Washington, and Senator Riley. Said bill is returned herewith.
Clerk will read the message to the Senate.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the House of Delegates does not recede in the House amendments to the Senate bill and agrees to a conference committee to confer the disagreeing votes of the two houses. The Senate has appointed Senator Pinsky chair, Senator Washington, and Senator Riley. The House appoints Delegate Crosby chair, Delegate Rogers, and Delegate Adams. Said bill is returned herewith.
Message from the Senate. Senate bills introduced in the House. The clerk will read the bills and committee assignments.
Senate Bill 392, Senator Augustine, House Rules. Senate Bill 811, Senator Hershey, House Rules, by order of Sylvia Secret, Chief Clerk.
Special order calendar number 81. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 438, Public Schools, Pregnant and Parenting Students, Policies and Reports. Bill on third reading.
Recognizing the minority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you for the body for allowing a special order for someone who was away for religious services. Thank you.
The gentleman from Frederick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to my esteemed colleagues for the special order opportunity on this bill. And I appreciate the discussion earlier on the House version. If the floor leader could rise for a couple more questions on this.
Yes, Delegate.
Thank you. So in its current amended status on the House side, those amendments are not on the Senate bill currently, correct?
No.
And presently, the bill as it stands does not specify where the students will be transported to, correct?
No.
And additionally, there was testimony in committee, I think, opposing by the public school superintendents of Maryland as well as the Anne Arundel County Public Schools. Is that correct?
I believe so.
In fact, were there any counties who testified, any county public schools that testified in support of this bill?
I would have to double check that for you.
Well, I looked it over. I didn't see any, but thank you. So on the amendment, I have an amendment at the desk, Madam Speaker, to be, and thank you, Madam Floor Leader. Okay. Appreciate it.
I'm here.
773027.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. This amendment is a simple, straightforward correction that just simply adds clarity, as we just discussed, for the transportation of students to add and a student's legal residence. So the transportation will be to and from school to the student's legal residence. And the reason why this is important is several. First of all, there's a sex trafficking concern nationwide. In Georgia, for instance, 2,000 teenagers were known to have been trafficked. In Milwaukee, a public schools official was arrested and charged for human trafficking of a child in the school. And as we know, Maryland is a hub of sex trafficking. So what this would do is simply provide clarity in the law to ensure that the transportation is strictly to and from public school. And I think additionally, it would also provide a narrow focus because of the fact that this is an unfunded mandate on the local jurisdiction, so it would narrow this down for those individuals. And obviously, I think most of us would agree this is a laudable bill for the point and the purpose of the bill, but this would narrow it down for the local jurisdictions to ensure that they have clarity. And with that, I'd move the amendment.
Madam Speaker.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. While I appreciate your concerns around sex trafficking, I believe that the body is also collectively concerned about that. But that's not really related to what this bill is doing. I would actually recommend that the body resist this amendment for a few reasons. One, the legal residence on record may actually be at the moment where the student isn't residing. And you might ask, well, why is that happening? Because a student has decided to become a parent, is in fact pregnant, or already has a child, maybe something that their legal residence where their parents or legal guardians reside might not be something they support. There is oftentimes challenges for our parenting student to get not only themselves to and from school, but also to get their children to other places like childcare and what have you. That means that because of their efforts to try to secure stability for their own family, they might be staying with a friend of the family. They may be living with additional loved ones. So at that moment, by restricting their to and from to only their legal residence, you might actually be endangering a student who is parenting or pregnant that otherwise does not have the familial support that we might presume they have. I do believe that this amendment was offered in good faith, delegate, but I do believe that by having it so narrow, you could actually just be undermining the ability for someone that is bringing a child into this world to be able to do so safely with appropriate transportation. So I ask that the body please resist this amendment.
Maker of the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the gentlelady. I just want to point out that the gentlelady actually, I think, supports and in the concept of how you described the breadth of the current bill, that supports exactly my argument. And the reason is this: we all care about our kids. We all care about the kids that may need that additional support. And we all know that there is already a system in place to protect children if they feel endangered at home. But that system does not include state officials who do not have authority to start trafficking them to places that are not their legal residence. That's the law. If there is a social worker involved, if there's a issue of shelter need, we actually had gotten together with some bipartisan legislation, which I supported, to protect children who need shelter. But that's not this bill. In fact, the concern here is that this would broaden this to individuals who may or may not be properly communicating with the parents of the child and may in fact traffic that child. And so this just simply makes sure, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that we're not going to allow any of these individuals to transport children other than the place that they're, by law, supposed to be going.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Again, I appreciate the delegates' concern about issues I believe we all are very concerned about, but I just wanted to correct the record that I misstated that both the Senate bill and House bill do conform to one another. And why that's important is that this is not conferring any transportation to and from. It's about providing information on the transportation to and from to those parenting or pregnant students. So as I said prior, for the good of the body, please resist this amendment because it in fact is depriving our most vulnerable students, those that are both pregnant or parenting, the ability to get the information they need to safely get their children to and from school, to and from childcare while they're trying to get to and from school. So I think we're concerned about things that aren't really overlapping between your concerns and this bill. And I just think that that could be expressed in maybe a different bill in another session. So thank you for your time, and please resist this amendment.
Briefly.
Maker of the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Briefly, so again, if that's now the case that the Senate bill has conformed to the House bill, here's the concern. This simply ensures that no transportation by a public school official of a student will in fact violate that law, and that this ensures that the protection of these students and protection of the most vulnerable, to make sure that they have that protection going forward. The information, this amendment has nothing to do with any information that can be provided. It strictly ensures that they are transported only, if it in fact happens, only to and from their legal residence.
Madam Speaker?
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Again, I appreciate your concern, but this bill does not actually transport anyone anywhere. It gives them information about how to transport safely themselves and their children to and from school or childcare. So I appreciate your concerns as they've been presented, but hate to be in a circular conversation, but you're trying to stop something that isn't happening in this bill. So as again, I would request everyone in this chamber to resist this amendment. Thank you.
Gentlemen, still pushing this amendment?
Yes, Madam Speaker, thank you.
On the amendment, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed?
Roll call, Madam Speaker.
Roll call.
Madam Speaker?
Clerk will take the call. The amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments?
Madam Speaker?
Gentleman from Frederick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have one additional amendment at the desk, 613822.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, as we heard in the discussion, there is a great and important purpose in the bill to assist some of the most vulnerable in our schools. My amendment, though, in this regard, will make sure that those most vulnerable are also protected in their parent-child relationship and in the relationship with their parents and guardians. This amendment is pretty straightforward. It just says that communications shall occur with all the parties receiving the parental, guardian, and notice and consent. Additionally, it excludes any counseling or information or referrals for abortion or additional information regarding those resources. And the reason why this is important is because what the bill does in its current form, sadly, is it opens up the Code of Maryland to continue to interfere with, in more distinct terms, the parent-child relationship. It's very important, no matter what side you believe regarding abortion. It's very important that we have that communication with parents and their children. It's very important that we ensure that there's no pipeline from the public schools to Planned Parenthood. And that can certainly occur if there's no requirement in the bill to ensure that any information discussed and any opportunities presented is prevented from being discussed with the parents. That's not how we do things in America. In America, that relationship is sacred. We need to protect it. And with that, I would move the amendment. Thank you.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Again, I appreciate the delegates' concerns about preserving the parent and child relationship. That's also very important. I'm a parent, but I think it's important to start with one premise. This bill is about pregnant and parenting students. It's about making sure that they are able to access information about childcare, about transportation, about lactation services. It's a bill squarely focused on the student that has chosen to bring their child into the world. So while I appreciate your concerns, the scope of this bill is not about whether or not you're having a child. It's actually about adequately preparing for the child that the student will be bringing into the world, or how to care for the child that the student already has brought into the world. I also want to say for the good of the body that this amendment should be resisted, not only for what I just mentioned, but also for the fact that it's based on a presumption that parents are in fact supportive of their student that is pregnant or parenting doing so. In fact, in some instances, there are parents that are very hostile to the notion that a young student has decided to move forth and become a parent or continue parenting. So with that being said, if you have to require a parent to give approval of that parent or that pregnant or parenting student to do so, you may in many ways be across purposes. I believe you're very interested in people having the children that they become impregnated with, and maybe that parent doesn't want that to happen. I think that having that notification be required could really be undermining the ability for a student that's trying to make a reproductive choice about being a parent from doing so. So I think that it's maybe well intended, but I think it's across purposes of this bill, and ultimately it could undermine a young person's ability to successfully not only matriculate through school, but while they're parenting or pregnant. So I ask the body to please resist this amendment.
The maker of the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the gentlelady. I just want to point out that, in our committee, we actually have done some great work, I think, to try to preserve and protect the parent-child relationship. Very proud of that, and I'm very proud of those who work hard on these issues. And I think, as we look at how do we rescue our kids who might be in difficult situations, the most important part of that is making sure that there's a parent communication. And again, this has nothing to do with a situation where there might not be support and might be hostility. That can be dealt with through the law. There's a procedure for that. There's, an opportunity for people who feel endangered to make that known to the proper authorities. That's not what we're talking about here, unfortunately. What we're talking about here is just simply completely cutting off that parent-child relationship, potentially, that could, in fact, be the very source of the stability that person needs and that child needs. So, in addition, I think when you look at the testimony on the bill, the public school superintendents were against it. The local authorities were concerned that it was taking away authority from them. And at the end of the day, I know that the indication is that this has nothing to do with abortion, but NARAL put in 5 different testimonies in support. So for those reasons, I would push the amendment.
Gentleman from Baltimore County and Hartford on the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I rise to support the amendment, and I believe the maker of the amendment has done a fantastic job in expressing his concerns. And just the other day, we spent a whole lot of time talking about juveniles in tough situations, and juveniles, how their minds at 13 and 14 and 15 and 16 and 17 years old aren't fully developed as someone who's 18, 19, and 20. And wouldn't it be nice if those juveniles had the ability that they had the adults in their life help them from making what might be a mistake? So I support this amendment because that's exactly what this amendment's doing. It's saying that these young people need to have the guidance of their parents and their guardians. And I agree, just like the gentleman did, that there may be times that that might not work. But for the most part, I think what you'll find is parents who will sit back and say, this is a life decision. We're going to work on this together, and we're going to decide what the right thing for you to do, which will prepare you for the rest of your life. And I think that's very important. So, Madam Speaker, I rise to support the gentleman. I rise to support this amendment. And it's always the proper thing when adults intervene, those who care, those who are the loved ones, to sit down and work these issues out before they move forward. So I think this is a very reasonable amendment, and I hope the committee takes it as a friendly amendment. Thank you.
Floor Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. While we're taking note of who was for and against this bill, I think for the good of the order, as the good delegate mentioned that there were various parties that were opposed to this bill, I think it's worth mentioning that not only was NARAL in support of this bill, but they were joined by the Maryland Catholic Conference in that support. So I think the fact that this bill is very narrow in scope and focused entirely on the position of being a pregnant or parenting student, that your concerns are not necessarily founded, though appreciate it. And I do ask the body to resist this amendment.
Maker of the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would just remind the body that we need to do what's right, regardless of whether the Catholic Conference or any great group is supportive or against. And I would also remind us that this is going to impact children. This is going to impact those who we care about the most. Why would we want to prevent that parental involvement if it is possible? And because it actually could truly help that stability and provide an opportunity. And so with that, I'd move the amendment. Thank you.
On the amendment, all in favor signify by saying aye. Oppose?
Roll call, Madam Speaker.
Roll call.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk will take the call. The amendment fails.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the gentlelady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could I ask the floor leaders a couple questions, since I know we just worked with the House bill? I just want to understand, what are the current differences still between the two bills?
I misspoke, Delegate. They were the same.
Oh, they are conformed. Okay. Okay, so this has the same guardrails that you put in the other one?
Yep.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you. Would the floor leader raise for a quick question?
Absolutely.
So I'm reading a letter here from Anne Arundel County Public Schools, and I'm going to read the last paragraph. I don't know if the amendment have addressed any of their concerns. And in there it says that they have a lot of issues with the transportation accommodation and all that being unfunded mandates, and on also having to hire additional staff in the central office for each system to fulfill these responsibility. In the final form that we have now, has any of that changed, or?
Yeah, thank you, Delegate, for that inquiry about the transportation. There's no actual transportation happening in this bill. There's information provided to the parent or pregnant or parenting student about transportation options. in response to those concerns.
So, well, what about the staff position for each central office of
There
their
does
system?
still need to be staff, but there's no longer actual transit happening as originally proposed. It's about providing information. So there needs to be someone on staff to provide information. It doesn't have to be necessarily a new person. It could be someone already on staff that can provide information to that young person about, their transportation options and the other related advice provided in the bill.
Right, but they can still, our teachers and systems are overwhelmed with a lot of responsibilities, and this is
Understood.
adding another thing. So some schools will still need to create a new position to add to fulfill this mandate.
It's
correct?
possible.
It's possible. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Is there any further debate? Not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk will take the call. There being 117 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 438, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Concurrence calendar number 10. Clerk will read the bill and the Senate amendments.
House Bill 204, Environment and Natural Resources, Complaints, Inspections, and Enforcement, Information, Maintenance, and Reporting, Amendment Number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The committee moves to concur with the Senate amendments.
Question for the House is to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 204 is on third reading and final passes. Clerk will call, recognizing the gentlelady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Will the floor leader rise? Is this alleged violations? How did you conform this? What does this bill do now?
What the Senate amendment does is it simply strikes what would have been a delayed DNR reporting requirement on aggregate conviction data. So instead of the report taking place on September 30th, 2023, I believe it would, do you want to know the precise date when it will be?
Sure. Since we're voting, we should know.
Well, if you're going to be that way.
Yeah, I think we like to know what we're voting on.
Hold on. Yeah, when is it?
Get the bat phone out.
That's September 30th, 2022? Okay. September 30th, 2022.
Okay, so what do we have to do by this date? What does the bill do?
Yeah, it's the bill that involved tracking and reporting of complaints. It was a transparency bill, if I remember correctly.
But I think one version of the bill, and I'm not sure which version we're on, talked about alleged violations. So we have this thing in America where you're innocent until proven guilty. So I'm just wondering, are these alleged or convicted violations?
Yes, and I believe that the identifying information is stripped from the data, and I believe several other states that are in the United States of America have laws very similar to this.
So what kind of alleged violations are we going to be tracking now?
These are violations that have to do with complaints having to do with, I'm reading from the bill, any air or water quality requirement in this article or any air or water quality regulation authorized by a provision of this article. So basically, these are environmental complaints.
So
I think the sponsor might be able to fill you in a little better.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Hi. How are you?
Good. So this bill, which we have already passed the Senate version of and passed this once before it came back, this is simply to make sure that there's more transparency around what our Maryland Department of the Environment and Department of Natural Resources are doing when there are complaints and about potential violations and actual violations. You may remember that our colleague from the Eastern Shore, actually strengthened the bill on its first time out of here so that we added stormwater violations as well. All of the information that will be tracked on an online system, which actually MDE is in the process right now of standing up, and it's already live, but this will make sure that all of the information that should be on it is on it. All of the information is available by Public Information Act request already, but this bill makes sure that it's available without having to do IPIA. No information will be available on this website that isn't already available via PIA request, but this will make it more accessible to water keepers, to the public, so that we can make sure we're holding MDE and DNR accountable for their work.
Okay, and so back to my question. If my neighbor makes a complaint against me for an alleged violation, do I end up on the system?
No. The only thing that's on the system is that is whether MDE or DNR has started to investigate and some type of allegation, but there's no information that will be available on the system about who the allegation was against.
Who made the allegation or who the,
nope.
Okay. And then are you going to determine, will this data then show, well, there were, 50 complaints and 5 of them were real or 50 of them were real?
Yeah, it will show more information like that. I mean, part of the impetus for this legislation is that MDE has had fewer enforcements of our clean water laws in the past 2 years than it has ever had in the history of the agency. So this is about holding our agencies accountable for their work.
Okay, and so will this include, like I read about Baltimore City having, sewage overflows? Is that going to be encompassed in this report?
If it's a stormwater issue, then it could potentially be encompassed in this report.
And what other kind of tracking things are you looking at besides stormwater?
Anything that comes in that's under our that's covered by the Clean Water Act or air regulations. So if there's some type of, my phone's ringing. If there's any,
phone.
yeah, I know. If there's any type of allegation that would be or potential violation of our clean water laws or clean air laws. So if a factory all of a sudden started dumping huge amounts of sludge into the water. Yes, sewage overflows are included. But if a factory all of a sudden started, having sludge come out, or if some small, some business started having huge plumes of dark air come out and it wasn't ever investigated, this makes it possible for our water keepers and for our residents to know that MDE is doing their job and ensuring that our air and our water that we breathe and that we drink and surrounded by are clean.
Okay, but it's still not, it's shielding personal information.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Okay, thank you for that explanation.
Is there any further debate? Gentleman from Baltimore County in the annex.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I heard, if I could ask a floor-leader question, please.
Sure.
You said stormwater management or drains. Now, what happens in Baltimore City if they have a sewer line that overflows that actually happens near the Falls Way? Would that be reported?
Yes, if there's a complaint filed, then it would be potentially reported.
So it's not just storm drains, it would actually be sewer overflow, am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Is there any further debate? House Bill number 204 is on third reading and final passage. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 97 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 204, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Report of the Committee on Judiciary, report number 43 clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 156, Public Safety, Law Enforcement, Veterinary Care of Retired Law Enforcement Canines Act. Favorable?
Question for the House is adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 581, Action for Change of Name, Waiver of Publication Requirement. Favorable?
Question for the House is adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 623, Criminal Law, Crimes Involving Computers. Favorable?
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 752, Baltimore City Police Officers, Promotional Appointments. Favorable?
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 862, Arrest Warrants Issued by District Court Commissioners, Recalled by Judge. Favorable?
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 914, Sheriff of Baltimore City. Favorable?
Question for the House is adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Report of the Committee on Judiciary, report number 44. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 17, Criminal Law, Life-Threatening Injury Involving a Motor Vehicle or Vessel, Criminal Negligence, Wade's Law. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Move so much be the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The amendments conform the bill to House Bill 855, which passed the House earlier this session. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 43, Criminal Law, Law Enforcement Officers, Prohibition on Sexual Activity. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The amendments conform the bill to House Bill 411, which the House passed earlier this session. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 105, Peace Orders, Workplace Violence. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing committee chair.
Move so much be the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The amendments conform the bill to House Bill 289, which passed the House earlier this session. Move the amendments.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 250, Criminal Law, Sexual Crimes, Fourth Degree Sexual Offense and Spousal Defense. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Move so much be the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The amendments conform the bill to House Bill 147, which the House passed earlier this session. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 607, Criminal Law, Harm to Service Animals. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number one.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Move so much be the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The amendments conform the bill to House Bill 234, which passed the House earlier this session. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Ways and Means. Report number 36. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 19, Economic Development Biotechnology Investment Incentive Tax Credit Program. Alterations. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number one.
Recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Moves much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 prohibits company founders or current employees from claiming the biotech investment incentive tax credit if the company's been in active business for more than 5 years. Expands the information that the Department of Commerce must report each year regarding the tax credit. Prohibits Commerce from issuing certificates to claim the credit after June 30th, 2028. And requires Commerce to study and report its findings and recommendations on methods by which the department might award the tax credits on a competitive basis and increase awards of tax credits to early-stage biotech companies. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 80, Economic Development Maryland Technology Development Corporation. Alterations. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number one.
Recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Moves so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 prohibits any college or university from being represented for more than 2 consecutive terms on the board of directors of TEDCO and applies that prohibition prospectively. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendments are adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 160, Economic Development Cybersecurity Investment Incentive Tax Credit Program. Expansion and extension. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number one.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 specifies the purpose of the Innovation Investment Incentive Tax Credit Program, prohibits company founders or current employees from claiming the tax credit if the company has been in active business for more than 5 years, requires Commerce to study and report its findings and recommendations on methods by which the department might award the tax credits on a competitive basis, and makes technical corrections. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 196, Economic Development Research and Development Tax Credit. Alterations. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Moves so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 specifies the purpose of the R&D tax credit program. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 283, Student and Military Voter Empowerment Act. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
The amendment just makes a technical clarification regarding the use of the Federal Common Access Card by our military personnel to sign an application for voter registration absentee voting. I move the committee amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendments are adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 314, Board of Revenue Estimates and Bureau of Revenue Estimates, Organization and Operations, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed the third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 591, Bureau of Revenue Estimates, Tax Incident Study, Scope, and Intergovernmental Assistance, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed the third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 596, Election Law, Early Voting Centers, Hours of Operation, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed the third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 919, Horse Racing, Fair Hill Natural Resources Management Area, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes provisions mandating appropriations to the Fair Hill Improvement Fund. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed the third reading. Report of the Committee on Environment and Transportation, report number 37. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 22, On-Site Sewage Disposal Systems Inspection, Licensing, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title?
We are expecting an amendment, but we thought we'd have to offer it on third reader. Thank you, Madam Speaker. We have an amendment at the desk. It is 893723/1.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much we consider the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Madam Speaker, this amendment will conform the Senate bill to the House bill that's currently in the possession of the Senate. I press the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is the adoption of favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Gentlelady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could I just have the floor leader just remind me again, did this include businesses? And if so, could you remind me again what the parameters are for who's included in this?
Committee Chair?
Yeah, boy, it's been such a while. Hold
I know
on
it's
a
been
second.
like 2 weeks maybe, so.
Yeah. Oh, right. This has to do with property septic system inspections during property transfers. And just to let you know, the amendment that was added on the floor of the Senate, which we have just adopted, simply says that the fines can't be applied unless the septic operator knowingly violated the law.
Okay, so they'd have to know what they were doing. Okay. And the violations are, is there a list of specifics, what they are? Like, how would I know if I was violating it?
Okay, this is to be in the instance where you are conducting an inspection of a septic system and a property transfer if you are not licensed to do so.
Okay, so this is just penalizing people who are pretending to be licensed?
Qualified. Right.
Okay, that's scary. All right, thank you.
Okay.
Is there any further debate? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 144, Electric Vehicle Recharging Equipment for Multifamily Units Act. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 227, Water Pollution, Stormwater Management Regulations, and Watershed Implementation Plans. Review and update. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Be so much to consider the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
As amended, the bill is the same as HB 295 as passed by the Senate. The bill requires the Maryland Department of the Environment to update specified stormwater management regulations and criteria once every 5 years to incorporate specified updated precipitation data. Among other things, in updating the regulations, MDE must conduct specified public outreach and consult with specified entities. This amendment conforms the bill to HB 295. The amendment expands the list of stakeholders that the department must consult with prior to proposing the regulations required under the bill. Move the amendments, please.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 359, Department of Transportation Urban Tree Program Establishment. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
The amendments conform the bill to HB 80 by providing that the bill does not affect other programs that require the replacement of trees during the construction of a transportation facility. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendments are adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 365, Neighborhood Business Development Program, Food Desert Projects, Business Retention. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 483, Solid Waste Management, Organics Recycling, and Waste Diversion, Food Residuals. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Be so much to consider the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
The amendment conforms the bill to HB 264. Amendment number 1 makes technical changes. Amendment number 2 requires MDE to issue a warning before imposing a civil penalty for a violation of the bill. Move the amendment, please.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 692, State Planning, Preservation of Agricultural Land Goal. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Anyone from E&T? Chairman of the committee.
Madam Speaker, I moved special order this bill and to the end of the calendar today.
Tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Question for the House to special order SB 692 to the appropriate time tomorrow. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The bill has been special ordered. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk will take the call. There being 132 members present, the House is still in session. Calendar of third reading, Senate Bills number 34. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 9, State Employees Collective Bargaining, Applicability, Bargain Processes, and Memorandums of Understanding.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 96 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 9, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 30, State Finance and Procurement, Appropriation Reductions, Board of Public Works Budget Reduction Clarification Act.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 105 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 30, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 60, State Debt Annuity Bond Fund, Use of Bond Premiums.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate?
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing Gentlelady from Carroll.
Thank you. Can somebody answer a question for me?
Appropriations.
I'll try.
Chair of the Appropriations.
Thank you. Department of Management Budget or Budget Management opposed this unless it was fixed. So I didn't. They had a long testimony here. Was it fixed? It's about the use of bond premiums to use for capital projects.
Well, we didn't exactly fix it the way they wanted to.
Did you fix it
as
part
a
of the
matter
way?
of fact, there was a
Chair,
ruling.
Can I interrupt the chair?
Yes.
The vice chair of the committee in the annex would like to respond.
Oh, the vice chair's here? Good, thank you.
Vice.
Thank you.
Appropriations Vice Chair.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. What the bill does, it allows that the bond premiums be conformed to the IRS code and that the bond premiums could be used for capital projects in addition to other types of purposes according to the IRS regulations.
So currently, they can just be used for reducing debt? Is that?
Currently, they can, and what happened was that the Capital Debt Affordability Committee met over the interim, and there was a recommendation from the State Treasurer, actually the Bond Council, that in addition to using that for debt service, that it could also be used for capital projects, and this would again conform to the IRS code.
So does this put more of a strain on the operating budget since you're using bond premium for capital?
No, what it would do is it would actually increase capacity for additional projects, specifically for projects for local bond initiatives or additional capital projects all across the state.
So do you have to pay a higher interest rate to get a bond to get the bond premium?
No, and again, what the bill would do is that in addition to the debt service, that would also go to capital projects and other purposes that could be used to conform to the IRS code.
Just because something conforms to the IRS code doesn't mean it's good, but so.
Well, I think it's important that we abide by federal regulations.
No, but is it a good financial move for us to make, using bond premium? Bond premium usually means you're paying more for something and getting money back. You're paying a higher interest rate, and you're getting cash out of the deal.
Well, what it shows is that the state of Maryland has a strong financial rating. As you may know, that the state of Maryland has a AAA bond rating, and the various agencies have given us the status of strong ratings, and therefore we have a high bond premium return. And in addition to that, we can, especially during this time, as we recover as a state, that these dollars can be allocated specifically towards capital projects. And as you've seen from the capital budget that was passed just recently last week, that we're able to invest $1.1 billion back into the state. And these are jobs that are going to be allocated into all our communities.
Is this like is this temporary or is this just ongoing that we're going to be doing this?
This would be a permanent change to the code that would again conform to the IRS code.
Again, I don't mind as much about the IRS code. We do have a AAA bond rating because we've been very conservative with how we do our bonding, and I think that's why it's been a good thing. We've done very well over the years. And when you're using the operating budget to pay the debt service, you're paying, and this it's a question. This is not a conservative way to move forward. Did the Department of Budget Management, did they end up approving of this?
They did not support this bill. No.
The reason I'm asking it is because we're in a they call it a gravy train. We've got money flowing in from all over right now, but a few years from now that might not be the case. And this is just going to affect the operating budget more by using bond premium, which is basically when you take a loan out on your house. You're getting money out of the house, but you're paying a higher interest, or you're getting a higher interest rate, but you're getting more cash out. So we have to be careful of how we use our bond premiums.
Right,
and,
we do have to be careful, and that's why, in addition to the capital projects, it can still be used for debt service. So it's an addition to the debt service.
So it gives you the choice.
It doesn't eliminate the debt service allocation.
Did you run this by our bonding companies to see if they were in favor of it or if it mattered?
Well, we relied on the bond counsel through the state treasurer's office on this.
And they said this was an okay thing to do?
That is correct.
And the Department of Management and Budget did not agree?
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 100 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 60, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 323, Maryland Arts Capital Grant Program.
Is on third reading and final passage.
Madam
Is
Speaker.
there any debate?
Madam Speaker.
I see you there.
Oh.
Gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you. Would the floor leader rise for a question?
Yes, I will.
So can you explain, I missed the House version earlier. Can you explain what the bill does now with the amendment?
Well, the amendment actually conforms it to the House bill that passed earlier this evening, which is that it delays the mandate.
Right. So what does the bill now, just in general, does?
Well, the bill sets up a $3 million capital program for small arts organizations across the state to apply for capital money. It requires those organizations to get a letter from a delegate or senator. They would apply for it through the Department of Commerce, through the Division of Arts, which currently runs the operating program. This would be a capital component.
So can you give an example of a project like that in the state?
An example of a small arts organization?
Right, so it's like for a museum or?
Pardon me?
For a museum, or what is it, what kind of?
Well, it would be a small museum. I mean, our larger museums like Baltimore Museum of Art would not be a part of this. This is for small arts organizations. In Baltimore City, there's an arts organization in my district that does a lot of training with kids. It's a nonprofit group. It has probably an annual budget of less than $250,000. If they needed a capital grant, they could apply through this.
And how is that distributed throughout the state? Is it equal portion amount for each county, or is it just $3 million a year?
It's $3 million a year for the whole state.
Thank you. Thank you. Madam Speaker, would it be possible to hold this bill for possible amendment?
Chair of the committee.
We just passed the House version, and this bill is identical to that. So I would say,
well, it's not 100%
hold it till
identical.
the end of the evening, but I don't think this is it.
This is it.
I'd say no. I'd resist that motion.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's still dollars, and I think if it's not specifically stated in the bill that certain jurisdictions are going to get gypped, for lack of a better word. I still push the motion if I can for a special order.
On a motion for the special order, signify by saying aye. Oppose?
Roll call, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker?
Clerk will take the call. It fails. It's on. Senate Bill 323 is on third reading and final passage. Clerk will take the call.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 115 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 323, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 684, Maryland Licensure of Certified Midwives Act.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 684, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 714, Public Safety 911 Emergency Telephone System Alterations.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 714, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 789, Baltimore City Visit Baltimore Appropriation Calculation.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 789, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. That ends the work at the desk. We will be coming in at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Quorum call before adjournment.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their presence? Clerk will take the call. There being 132 members present, this House is still in session, recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House stand adjourned until Tuesday, April 6th at 10 a.m., Legislative Day, March 21st.